music to the noise, yeah, the mess we make. Machine Pun Kelly get caught in the fray. Facts and logic with a twist of chest. Strip it down to truth, yeah, forget the rest. Humor blows the lies right out of the park. Look beyond the shadows that set the dark. Sparks of laughter fire up the night, bringing clarity when they blur the fight. Cut through the chaos, yeah, the tangled lies. Machine Pun Kelly with a set of clear eyes. Truths and jokes gonna rock this show. Step into light where the real facts glow.
Hello, and welcome to the Pun Show. It is another day, another Friday. That means it's the end of another week. I want to say hello to friend of the channel, friend of the program, Rainbow Kitty, who is extremely happy today and with very, very good reason. There was... case you hadn't heard, there's this guy named Andre Carlo, who is an anti-trans piece of trash that was convicted of anti-trans hate crimes yesterday. And so that's the story that our buddy Rainbow Kitty has been following and is extremely happy about. And I'm extremely happy about that too, because I, for one, don't think you should go around beating the crap out of people because you disagree with their lifestyle.
Did you see that the EU just had their vote on and they overwhelmingly passed the referendum to identify trans women as women? Trans
I
men
did
as
not.
men. Yep. That just happened.
Is Stephen Miller still on the ground twitching and in pain and horror?
They don't know yet. MAGA doesn't know yet. It literally just happened. I just saw it.
Awesomeness. So it's a good Friday the 13th. As Walter says, Friday the 13th, beware the hockey mask guy. Huh. So, hi, Jason. Come at me, bro. I dare you. We'll see what happens. I saw the original Friday the 13th movie in theaters on the weekend it was released. So that's a sign that I am old, right?
I did too, and I was like 5.
Forget when was the your parents let you watch that movie when you were 5?
Yeah. Horror movies have always been a big thing.
May 1980, so I would have been about 13. The scariest movie my mom took me to when I was a kid was The Shining. And that thing absolutely shared the skid out of me. I was like, I was traumatized. I wasn't even able to watch the movie a second time until like 2 years ago. When I watched the sequel movie and I had to catch up on what was going on. But that was a scary movie. I don't remember if that's one where Stephen King has strong feelings on the Shining movie. I can't remember if he really liked it or really hated it. But wow. Jacob just met my version of Jason. What did Jacob do? Stupid stuff? Troll stuff? Took him no time at all to get banned. All right, so the next thing I wanted to just mention is something that Kitty brought out to me. Share screen. How often is your country mentioned in the Epstein files? And so I guess it's like the darker it is, the more times your country is in the Epstein files. Is there any countries that aren't? I assume this means people from those countries. But the greener ones are barely mentioned. Greenland only has a few. But Donald, or the United States of America obviously has a lot. But if Donald Trump were his own country, he would be like, is that 3.5 million or 350,000 is the top one? I can't tell. Yeah, 350. If Donald Trump were his own country, he would be black. Isn't that funny? If I had $1 million for every, or if I had $1 for every time Donald Trump was mentioned in the Epstein files, I would be a millionaire. So, Kitty, I was just, do you talk about, do you know anything? Have you read about this Uncle Luke thing? So Uncle Luke is, I'm not a rap fan, so I don't know anything about rap music, but apparently there was a 2016 interview with him where he was saying he was at Mar-a-Lago and the 90s, and there was like a big old sex party going on with all these women that were walking around naked. And I was thinking about playing it on the show, but I didn't want to risk getting it. Like it was gross enough that I was worried I could get like actually gig for it if I played it. But this was a 2016 interview. It's on Midas Touch. But he said he was so freaked out about it that he just left because he was afraid of like going to jail, because he didn't know how old some of these girls were, and he thought maybe some of them weren't all that old. And this is consistent with some of the reports in the Epstein files, some of those calls and stuff about the birthday, what were they called, the calendar girls or something? Oh, she's talking to her. So anyway, in case you haven't heard that, Uncle Luke is trending on Twitter right now, and that's why. You want to say something? No? Okay. So if I'm missing something, just drop it in the chat. So anyway, that was the next thing. But today's main topic is the economy. There's been a couple of reports that have come out that in the last couple of days, there's a jobs report, and today the inflation report came out. The Trump administration is trying to celebrate these things and make it sound like they're better than they are. And more and more, it seems like there is like the most people feel like the economy is going in one direction, and then even some of the numbers seem to suggest it's going in a different direction. So I wanted to talk about why it feels that way. And largely it feels that way because it is that way. But how can that be? Like, you've got things like the GDP is supposedly growing. You've got the inflation rate supposedly coming down. You know, we had the 130,000 jobs allegedly created in January. So why aren't us libtards celebrating all of these great numbers instead of, you know, sitting there showing our TBS and still criticizing Donald Trump? So let's take a look at what the actual reality of things is, and like just kind of break down how we can have such a different feeling. How can how can the economy be good? The only people hiring is Border Patrol. So first I want to validate what you're feeling, and then I'll go into, I'll show you this real quick. We're going to go into the K-shaped economy. And what a K-shaped economy means is that the part of the economy is doing real well, and the other part of the economy is doing not so well. And right now we have an economy where the top 20% is doing well, the bottom 80% is doing badly. So for most people, for the average American, it feels like we're in a recession because the average American effectively is in a recession. Hi D, how you doing? So D just said hello. So 10 reasons most Americans feel they're in a recession and whether those feelings are valid. I think this is Donald Trump keeps trying to convince you that your feeling is wrong. But is it wrong? Or is there something to it? So the first thing, you feel like the prices for groceries, utilities, electricity, gas, and everyday goods remain elevated, making basics feel unaffordable. Nearly half of Americans cite this as a top strain, with many skipping medical care, prescriptions, or family outings due to costs. And of course, Donald Trump wants to just make it about gas prices. Gas prices, by the way, are not set by the president. They're not really that much impacted by the president or what he does at all. They're more set by the by crude oil prices, which are set by like the rest of the world, OPEC plus, things like that. So gas prices are a bit down, not like as much down as Donald Trump and his minions would have you believe, but they are a bit down. They're down about like a dime, I think, year over year. They're down a little bit. And you'll see somebody like sit there and compare the price of gas with a discount in Oklahoma with the price of premium in California in 2022. You know, like you see these kind of dishonest comparisons. But if you compare apples for apples and the average price of gas this year compared to last year, the way any honest economist would, then it's down about a dime. Last I checked. I could check again. I didn't check this specific thing. So right now the gas price is $2.94. How much? A year ago, no, that's showing me the so about a year ago it was in so so yeah, it's down about 10 cents year over year. Nothing significant, and that has nothing to do with Trump either. But he wants to sit there and say that it's $1.99 a gallon or whatever, which is of course not true. And everybody that buys gas knows it's not true. $2.94 this year, $2.94 national gas. So it's about $1 more than what he's saying it is. All right, but then there's everything else. Like eggs might be down because eggs were artificially inflated because of other reasons that had to do with the avian flu and wiping out the the egg laying hen population and things like that. So of course that happened, and now they've restored the hen population, so the price of eggs has come down. But it's not because of something Trump did; it's just because the chicken farms did something. But he's taking credit for a couple of things that he had no control over, and then he's trying to pretend that that's the entire thing. But when you go to the grocery stores and you're looking at the price of hamburger meat and it's way up, you're not feeling, oh, the price of eggs is so far down. So the price of other things, the price of electricity is way up. Everyday goods remains elevated, and tariffs are adding to that. This makes you feel like things are unaffordable. Nearly half of Americans cite this as a top strain, with many skipping medical care, prescriptions, or family outings due to costs. Tariffs. So is that a feeling? Is that is it valid to feel that way? So I want to, for each of these things, I want to describe what the feeling is and then see, based on objective data, is that feeling valid? This one, the objective data confirms validity. Tariffs implemented in 2025 have raised consumer prices by 1 to 1.3% overall, costing the average household about $1,000 to $1,300 annually in 2026. So you have about $100 a month. The average family has about $100 a month that they're spending on tariffs. You know, that's like all your streaming services combined. And that's if you have a lot of streaming services. Pass-through rates of 70 to 94% to consumers, especially on essentials like food and imported good. For some, though, that don't know what pass-through rates is, there's that's the percentage of the tariff that gets passed on to the consumer versus how much is eaten by the importer or by the producer, the manufacturer, depending on, you know, when you buy something, you know, like the somebody could import widgets, and so they could just eat the cost themselves. The importer, they could pass that cost on to the factory that manufactures, you know, widget machines, whatever that is, and then they can eat the tariff cost if it gets passed on to them, or they can pass it on to the consumer. So each step of the way, people can either eat the cost or pass it on. The percentage that gets eventually handed down to the consumer is called the pass-through rate. Food prices are up 29% since 2020. And yes, some of that is under Biden, but that doesn't mean that it's not going up under Trump too. Trump was the one that said he was going to bring it down. It also doesn't mean it's Biden's fault they're going up, or in some ways, some of this isn't Trump's fault either. You know, there's some other things. I think sometimes we get too much into the thinking that everything bad that happens because somebody is president, or everything that good it happens because of whoever's president. But if you're being logically consistent, there are things that have nothing to do with either president that have made prices go up. Overall inflation moderated to 2.4% in January 2026, but remains above the Fed's 2.4% target rate, tariff due to tariff effects. And I think I have more on this later, but I'm not positive. But some of that is obfuscated by the October, the numbers not being available. So it's probably actually a little bit higher than that, like 2.5 or 2.6%. So go through some comment. Are economic crashes used to consolidate wealth upward? They can be. Did you see the story? We've been borrowing like $43 billion a week since the fiscal year started. I have not. Not surprising. I mean, that's when you have the debt going up as fast as it is, it's coming from somewhere. Didn't you hear the Dow and the NASDAQ is up 50,000? Well, the Dow is up over 50,000. And, you know, if you have a 401k, then that makes you happy. But this gets into, we'll get into that with the K-shaped economy. Like, people that are struggling to make ends meet are not celebrating the Dow. People that don't have money to put in the stock market aren't celebrating the Dow. Holy crap. That's a holy crap about the $43 billion, I assume. Okay, so let's go to the next thing. Stagnant or slowing real wage growth. I see sometimes people like seem to not understand what real wage growth is, because they'll talk about real wage growth and then talk about wages adjusted for inflation or whatever. You'll talk about real wage growth and they'll be like, but inflation's going up faster. Real wage growth is how much your income goes up after inflation. So just so you know, when people talk about real wage growth, inflation is included in that. Pay raises are smaller amid a softening labor market. Real incomes feel flat or declining for broad swaths, while inflation erodes purchasing power. Households report struggling to get ahead despite working. So real hourly average earnings rose 1.1% from 2024 to 2025, but low wage workers saw a 0.3% decline in 2025. So poor people, the less money you made, you had less real wage growth, and the poorest Americans actually saw a real wage decline in their income. Nominal wage growth 3.7, this is regular, like unadjusted, 3.76% year over year in November, but real medium income houses income stagnated and slightly declined late in 2025 for lower middle class tiers. So like example, $86,820 in December, down modestly month over month. So what all this is saying is that there's been a slight uptick in wage growth, but when you start adjusting that for inflation, it's actually down. The reason that Americans feel like there is less money to spend on the things they need is they have less money to spend on the things they need. That's a valid concern. So that confirms the validity of that. I haven't heard about the trans woman. Tell me more. In Canada, I heard about the shooting, but only bits and pieces. What do you know? It's horrible. I'm so worried about those families and kids, but I'm also worried about the blame. Oh, did a trans woman shoot somebody? They love it when, like, every time, anytime that there's a trans person, and I think it's like one time actually, I heard that 10 kids were, wow. Hang on, let me. Okay. Let me just pause what I'm talking about and hold this up. Okay. On February 10th, a mass shooting occurred in a small remote town of Tumbler Ridge. The incident is being referred to in many discussions as the trans shooting due to the trans. See, they even have to make it a trans shooting. They don't make all the ones where it's straight white men doing it a straight white shooting. The perpetrator was Jesse Van Rootseller, an 18-year-old resident who identified as a trans woman, having begun transitioning around 12. Police confirmed this detail on noting that she publicly identified and lived as female. She had dropped out of Tumbler secondary school about 4 years earlier. She killed 2 family members at home. Then she went to her former school and opened fire, killing 5 students and 1 educator. Well, that's really sad. And then she died by suicide. Canada's deadliest mass shootings in recent decades and the worst school shootings since 1989. So it's weird that I have a feeling MAGAs are going to be running victory laps around this. Like somehow they got a win out of this. The trans community gets blamed for everything anyway. Thank goodness on the new EU rulings. Exactly. Oh, that's really sad. I hadn't heard about that. And that was a few days ago too.
We have our first Epstein arrest.
Oh!
Yeah, I just sent the article to you.
The CBS one or BBC? Ooh. Oh, no. I'm paywalled. All right. Norway's former PM charged. Does this one work? No, that's that one. Yeah, it's paywalled. Here, I got an idea. So, sounds like a Game of Thrones person. Thornborn or something. How do you... All right. So, what happened with Thorborn Jangland on February 12th, 2026? Norwegian police formally accused charge, I don't know how to say his name, Jagland, with aggravated corruption, also described as gross collusion, linked to his alleged ties with Jeffrey Epstein, the late convicted sex offender. Stems from recently released Epstein-related documents. The Council of Europe lifted his diplomatic immunity on February 11th at Norway's request, allowing the probe to proceed. Police searched multiple properties belonging to him. He denies all wrongdoing and is cooperating with authority. His lawyers state he denies the charge and has not admitted to any visits to Epstein's Island or similar. Nutlick, though. Nutlick went to Epstein's Island. He has been questioned by police, but reporters described this as him being accused, charged, suspected, rather than formally arrested and detained. Norwegian legal terminology here appears to involve a formal suspicion accusation stage that can lead to arrest if needed, but no source confirms he is currently in custody. So is the development that he's been arrested now? See that headline again. Just charged, well charged. Oh, wait, do we... here we go. Oslo, former Norwegian Prime Minister and Nobel Peace Prize, has been formally charged with aggravated corruption. So it seems like that's elevated. I can't wait until we start seeing some of these people flip. You know, I'm finding it harder and harder to believe that Donald Trump didn't know anything that was going on. Like, whatever, you know, whether he was involved in anything illegal is like a separate question, but whether he knew, how could he not know what was going on when there's like allegedly sex parties happening at Mar-a-Lago involving underage girls and he doesn't know about it? Nobody was tried for anything yet. Somebody was charged with corruption. Next, Trump will blame them for eating cats and dogs. Don't forget about the dogs. then you better change Oprah Winfrey too. I don't know what Oprah Winfrey has to do with this. Nobody's saying anybody's convicted of anything. But it's amazing how sensitive people get about, alleging whether people may have committed crimes or that ran around using the phrase Biden crime family for 4 years without a single even actual allegation of what crime was committed. All right. So let's go back to the slide deck. So stagnant or real. So one reason that people feel like we're in a recession is because they are able to buy less stuff than they were a year ago. Housing unaffordability and scarcity, home prices, rents, and mortgages outpace incomes dramatically. Many say a middle-class life, owning a home, building wealth is out of reach, especially for those under 45. This erodes the American dream, with young adults feeling locked out. And this is such a huge thing. The way that we measure poverty in America is so messed up. We do not measure poverty correctly. The way other countries measure poverty is totally different. I'll read this and I'll talk to you about how we measure poverty in this country. The National Association of Realtors Housing Affordability Index was 116.5 in January 2026, up from 111.6 in December 2025, but 35% below pre-COVID levels, requiring a median income of $121,400 to afford a typical home without exceeding 30% of income. Housing prices stalled at 0% growth in 2026 forecast, but affordability remains strained, with home price to income ratios at 4.8 to 1, above the long run average of 4 to 1. Mortgage delinquencies rose to 3.9% in the fourth quarter, concentrated in lower income areas. So let me tell you how we get our poverty line. Do you know how we get our poverty line, Patsy? No, she doesn't know. This is interesting. So what happened is, back in the 60s, back in like 62 or 63, I think it was, we didn't have any way of measuring the poverty line. And so they asked this one woman that worked, I don't remember what agency she worked in, but they asked her, she was like a mathematician or an economist or something, and they asked her to figure out how we can get a poverty level. So she said, at the time, the average American spent about 30%, or about a third of their income, on food. And so she went to the grocery store and she thought, what is the cheapest food I can get that you would need to buy to live off of for a week? So she filled up, the grocery cart, and there was like a jar of peanut butter in there, I think, and a couple loaves of bread and like 6 eggs and, like some cans of tuna or something like that. Just like cheap food, maybe a couple of ham hocks. But it was like all just cheap food, all really, like poor person's food, so to speak. Nothing. She didn't have like steak and lobster in there. And she literally had them ring it up so that she could see what the cost of that food was, that basket of food. And she kept a record of everything that was in that basket of food. And then she multiplied that by 3. And then she multiplied that by 52 or whatever. And that's how we get our poverty level. Just 3 times a cheap basket of food a week for a year. That's how we get our poverty line. And that exact basket of food, the exact grocery she shopped for decades, was the exact basket of foods that we would still use. We would look at how much is that basket of food now, And then we would still multiply by 3 and make that our poverty line. Then eventually we updated the basket. We changed a little bit what was in the basket, but we still used the principle of 3 times what that basket of food costs. So the way we determine, and to this day, we do this. And they even she went and she testified to Congress. The lady that set this up, she testified to Congress that this was a messed up way to do something. She had like 2 weeks to figure something out. This is what she came up with on the spur of the moment. And so then she said, this is what I've got. She was not intending to set the poverty line for the next 60 years. She was intending to set the poverty line as an emergency situation for a stopgap for a few months. And so she even testified to Congress that this is not how we should be doing it. So don't blame her. Anyway, that's still what we use. And at the time, there was at least some sense to it in that the average person spent 33% of their money on food. Now we spend about 18% of our money on food, like 16 to 18%, like nearly half of what we spent as a percentage of our money on food back then. Other things have gone up relative to food. So like housing has gone up a lot in relative to food. Healthcare has gone up a lot relative to food. And then education has gone up a lot relative to food. In fact, if you just take those 3 things, the cost of healthcare, the cost of food, and the cost of housing, the cost of healthcare, the cost of housing, and the cost of education. You add those 3 things together, like with student loans and whatnot, and the average household spends 80% of all the money they make on just those 3 things, which leaves you the rest for transportation, food, and everything else, which means most families do not make enough money to meet the basic necessities. It's not just people that are in poverty Most Americans actually substantively live in poverty. And that's because we have a messed up way of measuring poverty. There's other indexes which actually have a more intelligent way of looking at it that most of the rest of the world uses that we do not do well in. So anyway, when the housing prices go up even faster than the price of wages are going up, while food is going up, and while all those things are going up, no wonder people feel like they're in a recession. As far as they're concerned, as far as their actual personal economic reality is, they are in a recession. All right, so I got some comments on that. Okay. Is extreme inequality a feature, not a flaw? Yes, and we're going to talk about that eventually. Our inequality has gone through the roof. We have more income inequality than any of the first world nation in the world, and it's not even close, and they have ways of measuring that. Everything is dramatically too high. Who got us in the mess to start with? Well, who got us into this mess to start with is like too simple of a question. There's a whole lot of stuff that happened to get us in this mess to start with. It did not just happen under Trump, and it did not just start happening under Biden. Food prices are just crazy out of control. Probably not, because I don't recognize the name. Oh, he's talking to Kitty. Bacon, eggs, sardines, bananas, beef. There was this couple, these 2 guys that were always feuding. And I don't know if you heard about this. There was like, they were just feuding all the time. And, like police regularly had to go out to their house and break things up. But apparently they finally decided to reconcile. The price of beef was too high. What do I get, Kitty? Do I get a laugh out of that one? Oh, she's not. She's watching something else. I was waiting for a reaction. It feels like a recession. Feels like a recession because it is for 99% of us. It is. And we're going to keep digging at that. Shitter. We need to call all these prices under control. There's this. Yeah, how do you do that, Gary? How do you get prices under control without being socialist? How can people afford houses when their cars are getting repoed and their college loans are all due? Oh, basil. I love basil. I don't know who basil is, but I love the smell of basil. I don't know how people do it with the kids. They are already high and think they went up a little bit under Trump. They were already high. And I think that, yes, they've gone up under Trump. And not every, like we talk about inflation as though it's like one static measurement. Not everything goes up at the same rate. Food prices are up higher than some other things. And it's like the more necessity something is, the faster the prices of that are going up. And the more luxury item something is, some of those prices are actually coming down. So that goes back into the K-shaped economy thing we're talking about. Hey, y'all. Hey, how you doing, Jess Express? I love your emoji thing. It's very, very cool. It's like sort of Black Power meets Scooby-Doo or something. I love it. It's awesome. And now speaking of Scooby, there's a Scooby van. I hope things are getting better this year. Finally, I wouldn't bank on it. People don't hunt and forage for food. What do you expect? I think the internet and social. All right. I think we managed to get by without people hunting and foraging for food for, about a few hundred years. The dollar store is not even $1 anymore. All right. Put down your phone, America. He said on his phone. Reagan certainly helped. Reagan was a big help. Reagan damaged America a lot more than a lot of people want to admit. There's nothing trickling down in my industry. There's never been anything trickling down. Does not mean that I have to get back in the kitchen. Well, maybe there's something trickling down the back of Trump's pants. You are measuring a piece of glass and the tape measure shows the mark is just 24 3/8 inches wide. What is the nearest measurement to the... Okay. I'm not sure what that question is supposed to mean. I would personally, it would depend on what I was doing with it. Is it easier to is it the kind of thing where you could sand down some of it, or kind of like, can you take off a little tiny bit if you need to buffer off a piece and then pop it in like it's for a window? Like, I would err on whichever side is more forgiving with what you're doing with it. It felt like a recession for the past 3 years to me. And in some ways you'd be right. Like like I'm saying, I think you're trying to make this into a thing where I am saying it is a Biden versus Obama thing, or Biden versus Trump thing. I think personally, I think a lot of it is we never actually fully recovered from COVID. A lot of it is the economy for the last 40 years leading up to it. I am not one of those people that tries to cram all of economics into one thing. But I will say this, and we'll get into this in a bit. 3 things Trump is doing that are making it a lot worse, a lot faster are 1, tariffs, 2, mass deportations, and 3, his austerity cuts. Each of those things individually is making it worse. And then compounded, it makes it even worse or worse. And we'll get into that in the next slide set. I just wanted to start with this one because I thought, and so far I'm right, nobody's disagreeing with the fact that it feels like we're in a recession. Okay, how much is a meal at McDonald's? I don't think you can get one for under $10. I don't even know anymore. I can't afford to go find out. I just make my own food. Thanks, friend. You're welcome. Thank you for joining the show. Lately, the trend is for restaurants to go bankrupt. And restaurant food, by the way, is going up even faster than the food on your shelves. I'm glad I found your show. I subscribed. Thank you for subscribing, Gary. You've been here a couple of times before, and I seem to remember you don't always agree with me, but this is why I'm trying to do what I'm trying to do, because I want to have conversations with people that disagree with me too. I was making $33.80 an hour plus benefits on a union trade job in the mid 80s and 90s. One of the things I think you'll agree with, John, because I think I've talked to you before too. One of the biggest mistakes the Democrats have made in the last 50 years is they've abandoned unions. I had a job a few years ago that was, we were a subcontractor for Google. I would help write the help center articles, like Google's help center articles, which is much more of a skill than it sounds. And we unionized. We were making like millions and millions of dollars for Accenture. So we unionized, and then we got laid off for unionizing, although they would never admit that that's what happened. But what are you going to do? We asked them, even with the union board person from the federal government there. We asked them, we asked them about it. Why did you lay us off right after we announced that we were unionizing? And they're like, oh, we were planning this beforehand. And we asked, do you have any written documentation of that at all? Do you have any emails, anything at all that can prove that? And they're like, no. Well, they still laid off 2/3 of the workforce. Are recessions inevitable or useful for restructuring power and ownership? I don't know the relevance to that question. If you're not making ends meet, you don't want a theoretical conversation about how necessary recessions are. Father and I both retired from that union. Awesome. I wish more people could retire from union. Did you have a pension? Pensions are another thing that have gone by the wayside. That makes me sad. I love that I grew up in a country where people could stick with one company their entire lives and then retire and have a pension and not have to worry about losing their health insurance and all that. All right. So let's go back to here. Housing affordability. So my whole thing that I got sidetracked on was to point out that the way we determine the poverty line is based on food. So when housing goes up disproportionate to food, it actually masks the kind of people that are in poverty. And then we measure everything else by, a percentage of the poverty level. We don't measure things by what they cost. We don't measure what people need by what things cost. We measure what people need by what food costs. Only food. Food is the only thing that matters when it comes to all this stuff about the Affordable Care Act or, what kind of assistance you get in Medicaid or any of those things. They all tie back to just what the cost of food is. And other things have gone up more than the cost of food. Good. I'm glad you've got a pension, dude. I really am. I mean, I just I'm so happy for you. Hiring is at historic lows in many sectors, and we'll go into the jobs report in the next section. With job openings scarce relative to applicants in some periods, fears of layoff jobs, job losses, especially in vulnerable groups like youth or certain demographics, and uncertainty make people feel insecure. Okay, this is so just the new jobs report shows 130,000 jobs, right? So you're like, oh, that's great. Exceeding forecasts of 75,000. Woohoo, right? With employment at 4.3%, down from 4.4%. So all that, this is what I'm talking about. You get this stuff news that you would think is good news, but there's some problems. Growth is concentrated, e.g. healthcare, 123,500 jobs. You know what doesn't depend on the government for jobs more than anything else is healthcare. Healthcare growth, healthcare job growth has nothing at all to do with the economy or anything else. Healthcare job growth has to do with the fact that baby boomers are getting older and starting to need more healthcare. That's all it is. I could be president and it would be the same. And I would never live in a country that voted for me to be president. So when you take out the healthcare jobs out of the Trump administration over the last year, they've actually lost jobs across the board. And then monthly averages remain low at 30,000, down from 103,000 in 2025. This supports anxiety in non-growth sectors. So what about everything else? Finance and, construction and, I don't know, retail, all of that kind of stuff. Everything else that you can work in, we're losing jobs in. I think their services might be up a little bit too, but for the most part, we've had jobs masking, or the healthcare industry is masking massive job losses. And then we also had the correction of 2025's jobs reports, which actually make, I think 2025 is a net down now, or it's either a net down or it's a net down after health insurance. More reliance on credit cards. Okay, rising debt and financial strain is another one. More reliance on credit cards to cover basics with delinquencies up. So people are using credit cards to pay their bills. You're like, oh, they're still spending the money, but they're spending money out of credit cards instead of out of their bank accounts. So delinquencies are up, balances are getting carried longer. Unexpected expenses derail savings or goals, and many dip into emergency funds just to stay afloat. So they're still spending money to pay their bills, but it's not the money they wanted to spend, or very frequently, as with credit cards, it's not money they have to spend. It's just they're borrowing money to stay alive. Household debt hit 8. So is this valid? Household debt hit $18.8 trillion in the fourth quarter of 2025, up $191 billion, with delinquencies at 4.8%, the highest since 2017, up from 4.5% in quarter three. So this is going back almost to when we were still recovering from the Great Recession. Credit card debt reached $1.28 trillion, up 5.5%, with serious delinquencies at 12.7%, since July since 2011, and that's like back at the beginning of coming out of the Great Recession. Auto delinquencies at 5.2%, concentrated among low-income young borrowers. So when Walter brought up the whole, how are you going to pay for rent when they're repoing your car? Exactly that. Car delinquencies are up 5.2%. Can't find out where he said that. Then who gains most from inflation? Government. Why do you think that somebody gains from inflation? I don't understand what. Let's just stay on the conversation at hand. People making money off of inflation is not what we're talking about. Not abandoned unions. Unions have abandoned old style trades and professions. It's not about manufacturing anymore, but there still can be, like, my job was a union. Like, they actually ended up successfully becoming a union. And it was the first union that was a subcontractor for Google. So kind of cool. But you can unionize. You don't have to be a part of a trade union to be part of a union. But the whole right to work laws, which are kind of the antithesis of what they claim to be, are not challenged by the left, by the liberals, by the Democrats. And Joe Biden, like with the train workers union, kind of threw the union under the bus himself. Unions always made money for members when run by the mob. There may be some truth to that. I was very blessed to keep my pension before the company got rid of it for everybody else. I see jobs for home health care aides all the time. I used to do it for a while. And you know what? If Kamala Harris was president, that would be covered by Medicaid. Okay. So let's keep going here. Inability to afford big ticket or discretionary items. So vacations, family events, professional sports, or even air travel feel out of reach for many. Over a third can't afford outings with the friends, family, amplifying a sense of deprivation. And this is, perhaps this might be easier to, like, just, ignore how important this is. But man, you have, like, if you go a few years without being able to take a family vacation or just get away, that can really, really have a psychological impact on you, and definitely make you feel like, I am just working for other people at this point. I'm just working to pay my bills. I'm not able to enjoy the life I am working for. What's the point of working for a living if you can't live off if you're working? Lower income spending growth was 0.3% year over year in January 2026 versus 2.5% for higher income. So higher income people are being able to do more recreational spending while poorer people aren't. That's going back to the K-shaped economy. Bottom 80% share of spending at a record low 41%. So yeah, there's some variations going on, but somewhere around 60% of all consumer spending is done by the top 10% of households. And that's a trend that's been going for years, but it has definitely exacerbated in the last year and a half, or definitely gotten even worse, a lot worse under the last year and a half. So discretionary intentions below 2021 levels. So there's, like when you talk about spending and consumer spending, there's stuff you have to spend, right? And then there's stuff you want to spend. Discretionary spending among most of people is down below what it was in 2021 when we were still coming out of the COVID recession. pessimism about the future, low consumer confidence. Expectations for personal finances, business conditions, and the job market are deeply negative. Expectations index well below recession warning levels. Many believe things will get worse, with only a minority feeling optimistic. This is the Conference Board Consumer Confidence Index fell to 84.5 in January of 2026, lowest since 2014, down 9.7% points from December. So remember economic anxiety and all of that stuff? Well, we're back to economic anxiety levels. The one, the economic anxiety that got Trump won. Why do you think that Trump is now underwater on the economy? There are people now. There was a poll that came out today that said Joe Biden, the majority had Joe Biden did better on the economy than Donald Trump. The number one reason that Donald Trump won the election over Kamala Harris was that people felt he would do better on the economy. Now, the majority of people say Joe Biden did better on the economy than Donald Trump is doing. Expectations index at 65.1, below 80. The expectations index is one way of predicting recessions, and 80 is like the barometer. If we start going below 80, then it looks like people are expecting a recession. We're at 65.1. 61% believe a recession is coming in the next year. That's getting into, at that point, you're getting into some Trump supporters feel that way. Let me check and see if we got some new comments. Oh, sorry. Retail is dead. There is no hiring at Christmas. Yeah, malls are dying. Places like JCPenney and Macy's are dropping like flies. I haven't been to a mall in a long time. But you're against unions, Walter? Are you against unions, Walter? That's backwards. Oh, he's saying that being against. Do you have any predictions for the stock market in the future? Just curious, what do you think? Okay, my thoughts on the stock market are that right now, the last I checked, which was maybe a month ago, the stocks that are connected with the AI industry, I think AI in a lot of ways, including with what we're talking about right now, AI is propping up a lot of the economy. I think that AI is, and when I say I'm not just talking about AI, I'm talking about the chip industry and the software and all of the stuff that goes along with it. And there's like a certain grouping, I can't remember what the like technology, there's some sort of stock market mumbo jumbo cohesive term that includes all of these guys, like the chips and the chips manufacturers and all of those people together. And if you take those groups out of the stock market, the rest of the stock market is down. If you take AI out of the GDP growth in 2026 was like 0.6%, or in 2025 was like 0.6%. If you take the AI is the reason that the job growth numbers are all over the place, because traditional ways of measuring month-to-month job growth have to do with investments, but so much of the investments have been in AI, and AI doesn't follow traditional models when it comes to employment. So that's why you keep seeing these huge numbers of adjustments, both under Biden and under Trump. It's not that there's some sort of nefarious thing going on. It's just that the algorithm is not accurately predicting what's going to happen with AI. So I think AI is propping up the economy, and I think AI is propping up the stock market. I think that there's also a lot of things like what is it? The company that owns ChatGPT, like there's these like ChatGPTs, OpenAI, I think it is. I think that's the one. OpenAI, is that who owns ChatGPT? And then NVIDIA and Microsoft, they all have, there's all this stuff that's networked together. And I think it's the OpenAI has all these loans out that are about to come due. If they can't pay them when they come due, then that could like seriously hit NVIDIA and Microsoft. And so like all those stocks could take a hit at one time. And then if those three were to take a hit all at the same time, it could bring the whole AI the whole AI stock market infrastructure down. So I think that right now the stocks are up, but I think they're precarious. I'm hoping it doesn't happen. But there is a very real chance that it could be like I've seen comparisons in some ways to the mortgage crisis, because they're all so intertwined with one another. Like the mortgages were all kind of bundled together. It's similar in the sense that all of these things are bundled together. There's all these secret backroom dealings between them. We don't know what all the details are. They're not regulated. And Donald Trump is trying to make sure they're even less regulated. But I believe there is an AI bubble, and I believe it could pop any day. The mob charges less interest. One thing, and today's credit cards. And then you've got Donald Trump talking about a 50-year mortgage where you end up paying 4 times what your house is worth, and you die before you're done paying it off. Government union member, actually. Yeah, government union was great. My dad is retired Air Force and retired Foreign Service. There's so many laws that vilify poverty, like it being illegal to live in a house with no water without getting another ticket in some places. Wow. Yeah, I always say it's expensive to be poor. Well, the whole tariff thing turned out to be a scam. Where's all this tariff money? Oh, I thought, aren't we supposed to be getting our $4,000 checks? How long has the live been on? 1 hour, 7 minutes, and 31 seconds. How you doing, Brett? Kitty was here for a while, but she had to step out. I love that I have regulars now. I did this for a year with nobody watching, but I persisted. Nevertheless, he persisted. I really do think we need actual transparency with government money. Like what percentage goes where on every paycheck. That would be a cool app. I wonder how hard it would be to set something up like that. Like if you could log in, and then, or like you go to this website, you tell it, this is how much money I paid in Social Security, this is how much money I paid in federal income taxes, how was my money spent? Is that what you're talking about? Like 37 cents of your money went to killing ICE agents, killing civilians on the street or whatever. I agree with you on the stock market. Thank you. I agree with me too. Okay. Republicans lost the seat in Staten Island. Everyone thought that would be impossible from their previous gerrymandering. They tried to fight it in court and got shot down. I hadn't heard. Is this a recent thing? I think that this November, if we have a free and fair election, that's a big if. But if we do have a free and fair election, it's gonna the Republicans are just gonna get washed. There's been too many massive sea changes. I think that the Republicans are underestimating just how pissed off people are. And I know that there's still the apologists, and there are still people that, Donald Trump could do whatever, he could rape children and they would still defend him. But I think we're starting to see cracks, and it's not like they had a huge majority to begin with. The numbers are not like, you don't need a big change to win back the House. I think the Senate is honestly in play, which was unheard of a year ago. Who can afford to do the Disney World thing anymore? 20% of the population can. That's part of the problem. The wealthy are getting wealthier, and the poor are getting poorer. There's actually something called an E-shaped economy. We're going to be talking about the K-shaped economy, which we'll go into. But the E-shaped economy is actually the rich are getting richer, the middle class are staying the same, and the poor are getting poorer. Oh, you're here too, Skippy. Well, yes, Israel's government is receiving a portion of military government spending. It's a small part of the new $1 trillion military budget. I wonder how much of it goes to killing. How much money did I spend to have American citizens executed by ICE agents? 15,000 at Disney and nothing. Whoa! But stupid mouse ears and some plastic. Dude, Brett, we got to hang out on you. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I did not know that Disney World was that much now. I only went there once, and that was 1989. Actually, yeah, 1989. I went there. Was right before I shipped off to Italy. Only Democrats are expecting a government handout. I don't know what that is supposed to mean, Thomas. What makes you think that only Democrats are First of all, why do you say Democrats are expecting a government handout? And secondly, why are you saying it's only Democrats? The joke I was making about the terrorist thing is because Donald Trump's the one that keeps saying that there's going to be a $4,000 stimmy check from the payouts. I'm just saying, bang for your buck, go on a cruise. Cruises are, dollar for dollar, they're actually a lot cheaper. And they're actually cruises are pretty cool. I've been on 3 now. I like cruises. You go there, you get on the boat, you don't have to worry about anything. You go to different places, you don't have to worry about driving. When I drink, you can drink whenever you want. I don't drink anymore, so that's not an issue. But like free food, everything, like you pay it, and pretty much all the money you spend, you know exactly what you're spending when you go in. All right. MAGA has been over. All the left is PEDs and supremacists. All that's left. Okay, all that's left is PEDs and supremacists. So you just got to ask them which they are. And there's, the Venn diagram there's a lot of overlap. MAGA is a Jim Jones 2.0 cult now. The true believers are ready to go to Greenland and drink the Kool-Aid. They're ready to go to war for Greenland. Nearly 1 billion. Oh, on ICE. And that's not even getting the details between DHS. Yep. I think we spend more money on ICE than like all but 15 countries in the world spend on their entire national defense. Jeremy Carl lost his job today. That white nationalist that believed he was supreme, but he couldn't even form a coherent Senate. Which Carl? Jeremy Carl? Is it? Oh, senior fellow at Claremont. So why did he lose his job? I hadn't heard of him. He's an American conservative political commentator, author, and former government official. He currently serves as senior fellow at the Claremont Institute, a conservative think tank focused on the American way of life. Isn't conservative think tank? I always laugh when I see those three words together. Like conservative think, that's an oxymoron. COVID cured me from cruises. Yeah, I haven't been on one since COVID happened. I have one lung. I got COVID once and nearly killed me. I don't want to get it again. Fortunately, I was vaccinated. It saved my life. My favorite vacations are ones where I can stay at home and relax. That's my life, buddy. That's my life. I don't know what to do. You have to have a job to go on. Yes, this is a fair point. Otherwise, it's just spend money you don't have cation. All right, so now let's go on to number 10. Partisan economic divide in two economies feeling, while high earners with stock gains, AI tech benefits feel resilient. Most see a bifurcated reality where growth doesn't help them, leading to a frustration that the economy favors the wealthy. K-shaped economy is entrenched. Top 20% hold 72% of the wealth. Near record highs, top 10% drive 50% of what we're spending. Just think about that. Wow. I was, for comparison, it was like, 20 years ago or whatever, it was around 40. The top 20% would spend about 43% of all spending. Now it's top 10% is spending 50% of what we're spending. So it's definitely the disparity is growing. And when you're looking at the GDP, there's four things that make up GDP, right? There's consumer spending, investments, government spending, and net exports. Net exports is more of a fine-tuning thing. The main drivers are government spending, investments. Investments is like investments in new businesses. It's not investments in existing businesses. And consumer spending. Consumer spending is the largest of those. And consumer spending is actually up a little bit, but it's only up because rich people are spending more money. So it masks things. It makes it look like GDP is doing better than it really is. The average person is spending less money because they have less money to spend. The average person has less discretionary spending. Investment is up, but it's almost all in AI. And it's not generating the kind of jobs that it should, that other investments would be. And on top of that, because of Trump's tariff chaos, it's the only thing that people want to invest in at this point. Because everything else that they might try to invest in, they don't know what bug is going to crawl up and pluck a hair out of a certain diaper. So nobody wants to invest in other things. So investments in other things is down, while investments in AI is up, which just exacerbates that whole AI bubble thing I was talking about. Government spending is down because we're doing these austerity cuts. Austerity means reducing government spending. So actually, like, government jobs is way down. Net exports is all over the place because of tariffs, not because countries are changing their behavior. So GDP is, like, right now, it's just a big lie. It doesn't mean what, I don't know if lie is the right word. It's like makeup on a pig. It's making things look different than they are. It doesn't change what they are. He was calling civil rights an anti-white weapon and stuff like, whoa. These people, like, I always say, like, fighting racism is not racism. I'll have to let you know Ron Paul predicted our current situation 25 years ago. Well, some ways. I mean, I'm not a big Rand Paul fan, but I'll give Rand Paul credit for sticking to his principles, which is more than a lot of people can say. Like he's at least, you know, like with all this civil rights abuse going on, he's calling out ICE and Trump more than a lot of liberals are. So I'll give him credit for that. You know, I'm not gonna take away credit where it's due. I think it's time as a society to come to terms. Basic needs don't actually cost anything. In the sense, it shouldn't be profitable to get between humans and basic needs. Right. I think we need to evaluate. I think we need to reevaluate where we are morally as a society. Like when we talk about legal immigration versus illegal immigration, for instance. Let's just talk about morality. Let's talk about what's good for the country. All right. So now going to the second slideshow that I prepared. I was trying to figure out how to frame this whole thing. And first I wanted to establish that we are actually feeling this way. Now the second slideshow is, why are we feeling that way? How did we get to where we are at? And is it Donald Trump's fault? Is it Joe Biden's fault? Is it bigger than Joe Biden and Donald Trump? Or is it, you know, there's contributory factors involved? So we'll go through and look at some things. So we've got this K-shaped economy. It's possible that, you know, because it's become more discussed lately, that you have heard of what a what a K-shaped economy is. But like, if you can just imagine, you've got the green line and the red line. If you just imagine a straight line right in front of those two, you'd have the letter K. And so the two tails of the K, the green line being the top 20% and the red line being the bottom 80%, those are the two tails of the K that represent two segments of the economy. So when you have different segments of the economy that are responding differently and doing differently, then that's what you call a K-shaped economy. Imagine the letter K on its side. After a crisis, the economy recovers, but not for everybody equally. The top arm of the K goes up. Wealthy households, stock portfolios, and asset prices soar. The bottom arm goes down. Working families face stagnant wages, rising costs, and growing debt. The GDP number looks fine. The lived experience does not. So that what we were just talking about. And so somebody brought up, what about, you know, the stock market and the NASDAQ? Well, that's great if you're in the green part, but if you're in the red part, it doesn't help you out so much. So the upper arm, the top 20%, 50% of all consumer spending. It's actually more like 60% now. Stock portfolios at record highs. Home equity is up 30% since 2020. Real wages are growing above inflation. AI boom drives 92% of GDP growth. The lower arm has record credit card debt at $1.2 trillion. Real wages are stagnant and or declining, depending on where you are. Basically, the less money you make, the worse you are doing. Like, you're making less money faster, if that makes sense. Savings rates are near historic lows, and what people are burning through their savings to just stay alive. Housing costs are consuming 40% of income. So remember what I was saying about that whole food thing and how we establish our poverty levels? This is relevant here. Only 25% believe they can improve their standard of living. So what about you? Do you feel like you can improve your standard of living? Do you feel like there's hope? How GDP growth hides decay. 92% of GDP growth from AI investment by a handful of tech companies. 0.1% of GDP growth if you remove all AI-related capital spending. And 4% of GDP overall is AI tech investment driving nearly all growth. The GDP illusion: consumer spending looks healthy in the aggregate, but the top 10% account for 50% of all spending. When a billionaire buys a yacht, it counts the same in GDP as 1,000 families buying groceries. Meanwhile, bottom 80% spending is increasingly debt-fueled. Credit card balances at record highs, savings are depleted. GDP doesn't distinguish between prosperity and desperation spending. So, you see what I'm saying? Like, families are having to spend the same amount of money or more money, but they're having to use credit cards to buy it because what they are spending it on is food and medicine and hospital bills and housing. While rich people are spending money on yachts and expensive vacations. So the overall consumer spending doesn't go down, but that doesn't mean that everybody is doing well. GDP can still go up, and it can still look like, and it can mask what is really happening. That's why I say it's lipstick on a pig. The jobs mirage. January 26 jobs by sector. Don't remember what this was. January 2026 jobs by sector, thousands. We don't have sector labels here. So this is, I think the 82 is I know the 82 is wonder if I've got this in a note on a slide. Let me see something here. Sorry about this. No speaker slide. So I don't know what that is. So we'll just skip over that. But I know the 82 is healthcare related. But we had talked about this a bit earlier. That the main sectors that are having job growth have nothing to do with the economy overall. It's not that, Donald Trump's great for the healthcare sector. Baby boomers are getting old, or what's driving the job increases in the healthcare sector. 10,000 Americans turn 65 every single day. Okay, healthcare isn't an economic policy, it's demographics, the demographic engine. 10,000 Americans turn 65 every single day. By 2024, the 65 plus population grows from 60 million to 73 million. BLS projects healthcare to add 2 million jobs by 2034, the most of any sector. So this is just, we're aging into this sector growing. This is not Trump policy is doing great things for the healthcare sector. People getting old is doing great things for the healthcare sector. This happens regardless of who is president, what tariffs exist, or what economic policies are in place. So strip out the healthcare, stripping out healthcare. This is where I was looking. Total jobs added was 181,000. Healthcare average 33,000 per month, 39,000, 396,000. Social assistance 200,000. Everything else minus 400,000. Minus healthcare, we've actually lost 400,000 jobs since Trump became president. The whole thing, the job growth is all manufactured, not by Trump, not by mathematical wizardry, not by, like, I'm not going to say that they're lying about the numbers or anything. They're not. But they don't have anything to do with those numbers. You take out the healthcare and we've lost jobs. Policy accelerant number one. So, like I said, some of these things, like Donald Trump is not making people age faster. Like, that's not his fault. Wasn't Joe Biden's fault. And neither one has much to do with the money that's being invested in AI. That was happening regardless of him. No, he's deregulating AI and working with AI in ways, some of which I don't feel comfortable with, but that has nothing to do with the amount of money being invested in it. Or rather, the amount of money being invested in it might have something to do with why he's getting involved in it, since he's making money off of it. But that's another story. There are some things, however, that he is making it worse. Like, he is not the reason we have a K-shaped economy, but rather than addressing that we have a K-shaped economy, his policies are accentuating it and making it worse. The first thing is his tariffs. Tariffs widen the K. Tariffs cost on goods are a rounding error on high incomes. Stock portfolios benefit from reshoring narratives. A 20% tariff on a $50 toaster is $10, barely noticeable at a $175,000 salary. So think of it this way. If you make $30,000 a year, you spend $30,000 a year, right? All of the money you make, you're spending. You're not sitting there saving up 10%. You don't have more to spend. So if you're spending $30,000 a year and you have to spend part of your money that you're spending is all going to tariffs, then that means all of the money you spend, at least some of it, is going to tariffs. So if, like, let's say it's a 5% net, tariff that you have to pay across the board, on average for whatever you're buying, then that's 5% of your money, your income is spent on tariffs. If you are making $5 million a year and you're spending $200,000, then only a fraction of your money is being spent on tariffs. The more money you make, the less money you are spending on tariffs. The less money you make, the higher percentage of your money you're spending on tariffs. So that's why we say it's a regressive tax. It means it hurts poor people more than wealthy people. And that is one of the reasons that it's making the K-shaped economy worse. Inflation is worse for poor people than it is for rich people, because poor people have to spend more money on the things where inflation is happening, where tariffs happen. So for the bottom 80%, low-income families spend 60 to 70% of income on essentials, all of which get more expensive. Tariffs are regressive tax. The less you earn, the higher percentage of income they consume. Groceries, clothes, appliances, all the harder. So tariffs were sold as a way to bring manufacturing jobs back. Result, manufacturing added just 5,000 jobs in January 2026 after losing 63,000 in 2025. Retail added 1,000, leisure and hospitality added 1,000. The sectors tariffs were supposed to help are flatlined. These sectors they hurt through higher input costs are struggling. And not only that, we have less, I think, foreign dollars invested, I think it's called, or foreign investment dollars, something like that. It's the amount of money that other countries or companies from other countries invest in the United States. And then foreign dollars invested actually went down in 2025. Donald Trump is sitting there crowing about, oh, we've got all these trillions of dollars promised by this country and that country. Yeah, none of that money is materialized. And it probably never will. You've got this crazy old coot sitting there trying to start tariff wars with people. And so they're sitting there telling the crazy old coot, okay, in 5 years, we'll invest this money. And so then he's like, okay, look, I got to win. Yeah. They decided to give us this much money. And it's like, that's only true if you're an idiot. I'm not an idiot. He is an idiot. They're just, once that 5 years becomes due, he's not going to be president anymore. There's nothing binding to any of those promises. He's just telling them that to get the trade war resolved. Or they're just telling him that. All right, so we've got, but Democrats don't understand economics. No, Trump did not get 18 trillion invested by foreign companies. $325 factors already broken around one. Yeah, Trump did not get $18 trillion invested. He got $18 trillion that he says is promised. And none of the other countries agree that he's gotten $18 trillion invested. These are just empty promises, and it's not $18 trillion. The actual amount of money spent by foreign countries in 2025 was less than the amount of money spent by foreign countries in 2024. The private sector job growth is where it's really the only way you can get pricing down, through private sector jobs in manufacturing. That's economic fact. That's what Trump's doing, Democrats. Okay, but it's not happening. It's literally not happening. I just went through the numbers and showed that's not what's happening. That's why healthcare can't just, in the medication cost is now, it's almost 40% cheaper. Your overall cost, because you can go to Trump RX. Actually, you know what Trump RX is? It's a thing that the Democrats were pushing for decades. They've been pushing for what Trump RX is since 2006. Then Trump latched onto it, called it Trump RX, and all of a sudden, Republicans are cheering for it. Democrats have been wanting that for 20 years, dude. Why were all these people, when Democrats were snafu, and the entire country for years? I don't know what you mean by they were snafu. Don't be a muppet. Both sides play the same master. They just do it differently. Where was I? Lifelong Republican, twice elected, don't want anything to do with the MAGA. I know a lot of Republicans that I say Donald Trump is the rhino. Donald, like this SAVE Act, for instance, it's an unfunded mandate. There was a time when every single Republican was against unfunded mandates. It's one thing I'm hoping Rand Paul will point out. It's an unfunded mandate. It is telling states that they have to allocate resources to do things without giving them the funding to allocate those resources. It's a blatant violation of the 10th Amendment. And also go today and file your taxes. It's the largest. No, it's not. Are you like a real person? Where were all these people when the Democrats were saying that Biden was perfectly okay to run? Biden was okay to run the White House. I can't take you seriously with that profile name. If it was something normal, maybe, yeah. All right. Yeah, we're not reading any more of your comments. You're not a troll, but you're not honest. The screen name throws me off. That means you're making less money than the poverty line. The government is overtaxing you if you get anything from them. We're so cooked. We're so cooked. You tribal brain people can't even see the imminent danger at the door right now. What is the danger, Skippy? What do you think the danger is? Yeah, all right. I'm just all right. Almost no point in having just stupid. All right. It's never talked about what all the nefarious and illegal things the Biden administration did. What nefarious and illegal things did the Biden administration do? I don't know what, like, I asked for like the entire Biden time. What illegal and nefarious thing did they do? I just saw a lot of innuendo and, like, oh, Donald, or, like he paid off Hunter Biden's truck payments when he was a private citizen and stuff. Like, what illegal thing did he do? If you can show me an illegal thing he did and not just some innuendo, then I would be happy to condemn it. But I have not seen a single illegal thing that Joe Biden did. Dozing Donald falls asleep in public way more than Sleepy Joe ever did. At least Joe Biden never fell asleep in the middle of his own criminal trial. Almost 50 people I blocked from my contact list. You want to go after Biden? He has terminal cancer. Be my guest. I guess you love vices. The danger is divide and conquer. We're ripe for the Putin alliance. Yeah. Okay. Do you have anything specific, Gary? Like, anything specific, I'm happy to talk about, but just casting aspersions is not, like, there's nowhere to start with the conversation. I have a friend from school. We called her Skippy. I have a jar of peanut butter. Nobody ever wants to talk about both sides doing things. No, I think there are both sides that do things wrong. I will criticize Democrats when I feel like they need to be criticized. But I also think that there's another thing that happens where especially MAGAs will do this, and I'm not saying that you're one of them, but I think there are, if sometimes people will, like, I have MAGAs respond in a way where when they know that MAGAs do something wrong, they will say both sides do it, rather than just say the MAGAs were wrong to do it. They will say both sides do it as a way of almost justifying what the MAGAs did. So if both sides are wrong about something, I will say both sides are wrong about it. I won't say both sides do it to vindicate, something Joe Biden did wrong. Like, if Bill Clinton raped children, Bill Clinton should go to jail. If Donald Trump raped children, Donald Trump should go to jail. Each of those stands independently by itself. I'm not going to say both sides do it. Sorry about the speak and spell. I said kamikaze guy and the TV preacher vice president. Ain't going nowhere. I don't. Everybody loves Brett. At least he never fell asleep in a full diaper either. Dusty, you just keep living in your own little world. What was Donald? Gary, I'd really love to hear your thoughts. What specifically was Joe Biden doing that was blaping up this country? What did he do? Do you have specific criticisms, or is it just the same Fox News debunked talking points and the right-wing hit pieces? Like, I haven't heard anything real. All right, so let's go back to here. The labor supply shock. This is the second accelerant that's happening. This is the second thing that is a direct aspect of Trump's policies that is making the K-shaped economy worse, and that's the labor supply shock. Immigrant workers are concentrated in agriculture, construction, food processing, hospitality, and home health care, the industries that feed, house, and care for Americans. Removing workers doesn't eliminate the need for their labor. It creates shortages for their drive up costs, which are passed on to consumers. These cost increases hit the bottom 80% hardest because they spend the largest share of their income and food on food, housing, and care services. So it's not like people stop eating strawberries because there's nobody there to pick the strawberries. It's just the price of strawberries go up. Labor shortages for the wealthy, labor shortages may nominally increase some wages. Asset owners benefit from any narrative about protecting American jobs. Food cost increases are a tiny fraction of their income. For the working families, higher food prices from agriculture labor shortages. Higher construction costs pushing home prices up further. Not to mention the reduction of construction workers means that fewer homes are being built, which means that the supply is less, which means the prices go up. Longer wait times and higher costs for elder care and child care. Industries that rely on immigrant labor contract, reducing available jobs in adjacent sectors. And I'd also like to point out, people are like, well, there's all these jobs that all these unemployment people, these lazy liberals can go get, as though liberals somehow are the only ones on unemployment. It's a lazy argument. But there's also the fact that there are more undocumented workers in this country right now than there are people without jobs. So even if every person that doesn't have a job went out and got a job, we would not be able to fill all the jobs that are being done. That's number one. Number two, actually, jobs produce jobs. More jobs produces more jobs. So when you deport, mass deportations actually measurably, provably reduce jobs. They increase unemployment. I think it's for every million jobs, or every million deportations, 88,000 domestic jobs are lost. A net of 88,000. So the third policy accelerant, austerity spending. Austerity spending is when you reduce government spending. We've lost 327,000 jobs, which are still jobs. I know some people feel like federal jobs shouldn't count, which is dumb, because federal jobs actually are jobs. They are people that do things. Like, they're paid money because they accomplish things. And then when all of a sudden, you know, there's not enough air traffic control people and airline safety becomes an issue, then it's like, oh, well, we need those jobs. Well, you know, maybe you shouldn't be laying people off there. The austerity cascade. Federal workers lose jobs. They stop spending at local businesses. So, you know, right? Like, you lost your job. You're not spending the money that you used to spend that you made from that job. So then those local businesses lose revenue. They lie off their own workers, and then they don't have jobs. Then on top of that, while all these federal workers are losing jobs, they're also, the Republicans are cutting benefits to SNAP, Medicaid, ACA subsidies. So these are what we used to call, well, we still call stabilizers. And stabilizers are things that are kind of built into the economy. They're automatic triggers that if we start struggling in our economy, there's a net to catch people. These are things like SNAP, Medicaid, ACA subsidies, welfare, housing supplements, unemployment, all of these kinds of things, so that if people lose their jobs, you don't have this cascading impact. And the Republicans have slashed all these stabilizers. We put all these stabilizers in as a direct result of the Great Depression. We didn't have those things then. That's why we were able to free fall as far as we did. And stabilizers were put in to help prevent that from happening. Well, now we've made it so that there is less of a safety net. So the upper K benefits from this by having to pay less taxes. Deficit reduction narrative boosts bond markets, tax cuts for wealthy, funded by spending cuts to programs they don't use. Smaller government ideology aligns with protecting accumulated wealth, right? So the rich people pay less in taxes. The poor people pay more in taxes through tariffs, and they get less benefit from their taxes. Meanwhile, the rich people are getting more benefit from their taxes. So all of this just contributes to the K-shaped economy. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer. If you want to find one letter in the entire alphabet that defines the Trump administration's economic policy, it is the letter K. Lower K impact, lost jobs, lost benefits, lost safety net, all simultaneously. Communities dependent on federal employment see cascading economic collapse, healthcare access reduced through Medicaid work requirements. So then you start getting into things like with the Medicaid losses, you get hospitals that go under. When a hospital goes under, especially like a rural hospital, that's usually the largest employer and the largest consumer in a lot of these small towns. So then when they go under, it damages the economy of the entire community. Other stores have to shut down because not only is this hospital not doing business with them anymore, the people that worked at the hospital aren't doing business with them anymore. So it causes all these little mini recessions that happen. The compound effect. So that's each one of those things by themselves, the tariffs, the deportations, and the austerity, each one of those things independently amplifies the K-shaped effect. But when you put them all together, they multiply. So for instance, you have the higher prices from the tariffs. Then the labor shortages also produce higher prices, right? So like, let's say you get the strawberries. Go back to strawberries because it's an easy one. You have to have the immigrants that aren't picking the strawberries because they're not there to pick them. So then the small farm goes under. So then you have to get strawberries. Where are you going to get your strawberries from? Well, import them. So then you import the strawberries. But then those imported strawberries have tariffs on them. So there's a tax on those. The farms that manage to stay open, they have to raise their prices. So both domestic strawberries and imported strawberries, the price goes up. And since the price on both goes up, the price on both goes up more. Then you've got the food stamps or the SNAP benefits are also cut, right? So then SNAP benefits being cut means that the grocery stores have less income. Since the grocery stores have less income, to offset that, they also have to raise prices. So the price of strawberries goes up at the grocery store too. Like their markup goes up. So the tariffs are making strawberries go up. The deportations are making strawberries go up. The austerity is making strawberries go up. So that threefold amplification makes things worse and worse and worse. So each of these policies alone widens decay. Together, they create a compounding squeeze where working families face rising costs, fewer jobs, and no fallback simultaneously. All right, let's see if we got any comments on any of this. Seems like the conversation is just background noise. Our government as a whole needs to be responsible for what they do, not just one side. I don't think anybody's that arguing that only one side needs to be responsible. But right now, one side is running the entire government. You can't blame the Democrats for the big beautiful bill or the tariffs. Follow that to the end of the line. Have to leave again. The guy is still all over the place. Talker, not a person that thinks things through. Okay. Well, thanks anyway. Amen, Skippy. Wait, tell them when you find a job that isn't bootlicking with ICE, then I'll apply in an instant. I genuinely think that we need more public service jobs. Paying taxes to support other people's jobs isn't for me. Well, what are you paying taxes for then? I mean, not every job it should be either can be or should be driven by profit. You want to pay for I don't understand what you mean by that. Do you want to pay to drive down the local streets? Like what you use public services, and so those public services require people to do the jobs, right? Like you don't just pay for a street and then the street paves itself. It needs people to pave the street. I don't know what makes them useless or entitled. Doge was a massive waste of money. Doge was a massive waste of money. Okay. I don't think anybody's saying that. I think I still don't, I do not see where you have said, maybe I've missed it, but feel free to address with me what your grievance with Biden is in a specific manner. What crime do you think that Joe Biden committed? Off topic, I've always envied the city workers on the four-wheelers around the city. I'm sure there's a major drawback like pay or something. They all look miserable. Okay. Four-wheelers, that's interesting. Sounds like a worse cavalry unit. We never bash both sides, really bash one side every time. I still don't know what you're talking about. I do not know what you're talking about. What mistakes are we not talking about? I've criticized the Democrats lots of times on this show, but I am not talking of like, I don't understand why you're saying this. Like, what is your point? About the strawberries, the constant import also causes invasive species to spread. Even for like picked strawberries. But yeah, we have lost like nearly a third of small farms since 1980. I don't know what Kamala did that would made her a national disgrace. I'm pretty sure the guy who tars the public highway is a government contractor. Yeah. So he gets paid by our tax dollars. We need a new bridge in Baltimore, a lot more than we need Trump's battleships. Okay, warp speed. I think that was the one thing he's done right. But I don't think that Trump is like, I think you're beginning with the premise that one must be equally critical of Trump and Biden, when that carries the assumption with it that Trump and Biden are on equal footing. Donald Trump has done a lot more things to be critical of. Joe Biden never tried to overthrow the government. Joe Biden didn't steal nuclear secrets. Like, Donald Trump has done things that Joe Biden didn't do. So I'm not going to play tit for tat and then say that every single thing that Donald Trump did something wrong, I need to find something that Joe Biden did wrong. If you want to tell me a fair criticism of Joe Biden, I will tell you whether I agree with that or not and why I do or don't. But I'm not going to play tit for tat with Donald Trump and Joe Biden. I think Joe Biden was an infinitely better person and better president than Donald Trump. I think he means the bridge that collapsed, that the immigrants died on like a year ago. The Democrats will retract. So they should be. They should have never been written. And that's perfectly fine with me. Donald Trump retracted all of Joe Biden's executive orders on day one. Literally. Trump is a traitor. Less than 3 years, so things get better, right? Trump refuses to give the classified documents back. Biden did more than voluntarily turn them in. Okay, so this is a great example. The difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden in the classified documents things, because they try to equate these things. So what happened is the whole thing about the classified documents leaked from Donald Trump, by the way. Donald Trump's the one that let the whole world know that this was happening. So then Joe Biden said, go ahead, and then they found a small number of documents in this one office building that was Joe Biden's think tank or something had. Apparently, if I remember correctly, he never even stepped foot in that office. And they found some documents in there. And so then he didn't just give permission. They didn't get a warrant. He asked the FBI to come and search his house, just in case he had anything. Because what happens when you're a U.S. Senator or Vice President of the United States, you don't clear out your own office. You go through, you have your staff do it. All right. And so what happened with Joe Biden is he went through, or he asked the FBI to come and search his house. And they found a box that had some documents that were classified in them, related to, I think, Afghanistan. Whether he even knew those documents were there is anybody's guess. He probably wasn't, because I would think if he knew they were there, he wouldn't have asked the FBI to come and see if he had anything, right? But this was beyond a voluntary. This was a request he made as president to come and search his home. And they found this one box that had some documents in them, and he turned them over immediately. He didn't try and hide them or anything. The way that the law is written is you have to not just be in possession of classified documents. Especially because, you could not know that you have the classified documents. There has to be intent involved. Where Donald Trump is different is, one, he willfully took the documents. You can see him smuggling the documents out on the day he left the White House. There's footage of them putting the boxes on his airplane. Number two, they kept asking him for it, and he kept, whatever, not doing it. Then finally, he gave them some of the documents, but he didn't give them all of the documents. And he signed his name saying he had given them all back. So he lied on this paper saying he gave them all back. And they still gave him another chance. Then there's actual footage of him having his people hide the documents so that they couldn't get them. And then there's, like all the, where they found the documents, like in public areas and in the crapper. He literally had a conversation with a news reporter that was writing a book that he waved the invasion plans of Iran in her face and said, look at this, look at this. My generals wrote this for me. Then, some people are like, well, he can declassify them with his mind. And it's like, no, he can't. Because documents are not classified. Information is classified. All the information that was classified is still classified. Like if you read a classified document and you go out and you tell people what's in those documents, you're sharing classified information. It's not like just saying the words instead of showing the document. Like, well, I didn't show them the document. How can that be illegal? It's not the document that's classified. It's the information in the document that's classified. So in order to declassify the information, you have to go through a process that he never went through. Magical thinking does not declassify anything. So that's just a bunch of nonsense. What Donald Trump did with the classified documents, he willfully took, withheld, and hid classified documents and nuclear secrets. There were included in those were nuclear secrets, which nuclear secrets even the president of the United States can't declassify by law. So this, like equivalence of Joe Biden asking the FBI to come and see if there were any classified documents in his house and them finding some, with Donald Trump stealing classified documents, lying about having them, and then trying to hide them, are two completely different things. And I don't know if like when people talk about this, when they try to bring them up as being equivalent, if they don't know that, and they just honestly don't know. So if you honestly didn't know that, that is the difference. But if you know that and you just keep pushing the same narrative, then you're just a liar. There's obviously a massive difference between the two. This is what I mean when I say, like people try to make this false equivalence between what Joe Biden did and Donald Trump did. I'm happy to criticize things that I criticize Joe Biden for buckling to the union, or he didn't stand up for the train union. Like that's a legitimate criticism of him that I have. I don't think he did anything wrong with Afghanistan. I've looked into it. The Afghanistan withdrawal, I don't have any issues there because I don't think that there was any scenario that could have gone better. I think based on what the hand he was dealt and based on what he could have done, and this is according to a lot of his generals too, even the ones that say he should have done other things, there's a high probability that it would have been worse if he had, kept the Air Force base or whatever, or kept the one air base that some people say he should have kept. But anyway, we have to look at things individually and honestly, not just, you need to find something wrong that Biden did for everything wrong that Trump did, or else you're not being honest. So tell me what your criticism of Biden is. I'll tell you if I'm honestly bothered by that or not. But I'm not going to sit there and play tit for tat with Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Joe Biden is an infinitely smarter president, an infinitely better president, and definitely a superior human being. Every single drawing note and piece of paper is preserved if you're the president. Yes. And the Presidential Records Act, by the way, was not like Donald Trump's like, read the Presidential Records Act, as though he's ever read the Presidential Records Act. The entire Presidential Records Act is to prevent exactly what he was doing. Richard Nixon wanted to pretend like all the records were his records that he could take with him to hide his crimes and whatnot. The Presidential Records Act is saying, no, the presidential records belong to the office of the president, not the person. And so you can't take those with you. The Presidential Records Act says the exact opposite of what Donald Trump was saying it meant. So what you're saying is mine did everything right and Trump's done everything wrong. I'm not saying Biden did everything right and Trump did everything wrong. I didn't say that. I just think that if you want to be like, this is sort of a false dichotomy. I can, think that Biden did some things wrong and Trump did a lot of things wrong. I do not have to play tit for tat. We should all watch. Oh, I don't think I can laugh at that. I was too busy being pissed off. When she refused to turn around and look at the victims, she sat there and she lied and she said that if the victims wanted to reach out to her, then they should just call. And then she just brazenly ignored the victims when they raised their hands. Trump, yeah, I think that Trump was bad and Biden is good. Yes, that is an accurate assessment. I don't see why there's a laughy face there. I think it's pretty measurably true. You asked something that Trump, no one else did. Every time it's backfired and was harming the people and communicate the country. He asked his employees to hide the documents from the FBI. Did Biden do anything wrong? Why do you keep pushing this as though it's got to be like either Biden is, are you saying that Biden has to be perfect in order for us to criticize anything that Trump did? Because it's starting to feel that way. Like I can evaluate both presidents on their own and still determine that Biden was a better president than Trump. Specifically, not gas or egg. He caused the inflation on those two to begin with. I feel like Trump running 2 consecutive terms would have been better. Yes, Merrick Garland had 4 years to prosecute, but he did absolutely nothing. Gave them time to, yeah, I agree with that. I don't know if Joe Biden should have done more, but Merrick Garland should have done more. I agree that the president should not be involving themselves in the Department of Justice. But I think that Merrick Garland on day number 1 should have appointed a special counsel to look into January 6th. I think he waited way too long on that. They grape kids cocaine is the last of our worries. I know. To be fair, the documents were very safe in Trump's crapper. I swear, I think every president has probably done coke in that office, man. I don't know. I don't think Obama. I don't think Obama did coke. I don't think Biden did coke. I don't know if Trump. Actually, I don't. Trump does Adderall. I don't know if he does coke. I don't think Clinton did. I think maybe Bush did coke at one time. I don't think that most presidents have done coke. Clinton didn't inhale. We know that. Biden funded Israel. His cabinet intentionally gave him misleading information. Biden was indeed sleepy and old, just like Trump. Yeah, I think he was hiding. I think that's a fair criticism to a point that he was not able to daily do everything he needed to do. I think that the right has magnified that beyond what is real. But I think he should have been more honest with where his health was at. I was concerned about that when he ran initially in 2000. It was always a concern that he would win. And then if he won, he would rerun. Like, I think that's another issue. I don't think he should have ever run for reelection. I think he should have just said, nope, it was just one term and that's it, and then opened it up to the Democrats. I think if he had done that, then there might have been a different outcome in 2024. Like if he had just said, no, I'm a one-term president and that's it. I'm not running for reelection. I think that might have changed things. I do have problems with him running for reelection. I don't worship. Yeah. It's like Democrats don't really have this sort of reverent worship of people that the MAGAs do. Like I remember in up until 2008, like the last couple of months or the last 6 months of Bush's economy, of Bush's presidency, Republicans were still just revered George Bush. And then after the economy collapsed, then it became cool to not like Bush. But yeah, they were all about Bush. You couldn't say anything negative about play 9 Trumpers can never tell it both ways. What's a play 9 Trumper? Can you say something wrong with Trump? Can you say something right with Biden? Say something that Biden did better than Trump, if you want to play that game. You want us to do things that you are not doing, and you're trying to compare. It's like, name one good thing about eating a bucket of poop. Oh, but you're like acting like Jell-O's all bad. MAGA equals where willful ignorance and cognitive dissonance meet. Do people act like that by an administration? No, nobody. I have never met a single Democrat that thinks the Biden administration was perfect. I very rarely meet a MAGA that can criticize anything about Donald Trump. This does not work both ways. I'm sorry, man. Trump is intelligentsia is a bleep. More on my friend is the stupid. Well, Biden would win. Biden pulled us out of COVID. Biden did a lot of good things. I think people I don't think Biden got enough credit for what he was doing while he was doing it. I think he took too much blame for things he had no control over, like inflation. I think without Joe Biden, Ukraine would be completely under Russia's control right now. You know, the rest of the world is a big glass about your president. Sorry, can you read? Remember, even smart people can be delusional. So can dumb people, by the way. Right-wingers and their false equivalency argument. Think about this. How bad things do. I love this TPUSA dirt. Just came out. Kid Rock recorded all that stuff weeks ago, and they had to do 5 takes of each song exposed. Are you telling me that Kid Rock lip synced? Are you saying that? Oh, so that wasn't actually a live performance? He lip synced a recorded performance? Oh my goodness. And that was after they did 5 takes of each song. Oh my goodness. Who would have thought that Kid Rock was no Bad Bunny? Generally, people who aren't MAGA don't treat politicians like supreme leaders that can do no wrong. Like, these are people. Where is it? I don't know. This is MAGA. Oops, I thought I where'd it go? Why is it? Sorry, I'm trying to spend way too much time trying to get this stupid thing. Why isn't it working? Maybe that's why. Let's see if this works. I don't know what's going on. Why won't you show up? Anyway, can't get it to show up there. I don't know why. But yeah, remember the golden idol? Here, this is what I'll do. Oh, that's why. That's guy built like there's a literal golden idol of Donald Trump that people are praying to. The whole picture is people pray to Joe Biden or pray to Donald Trump. People don't pray to Donald Trump or to Joe Biden. Goodness gracious, Kelly, get your words out. People pray to Donald Trump. They don't pray to Joe Biden. You act like I've never thought about anything before. Reactionary politics like Trump's usually win when the flaws in liberalism show themselves. I think that there's an interesting thing is that there's a tendency to swing the pendulum back and forth when it comes to politics. Obama was a reaction to Bush. Trump was a reaction to Obama. Biden was a reaction to Trump. Trump was an reaction to Biden. It's proving I can criticize Biden. Like, I still haven't seen you say anything wrong with Trump. This is actually a game I play. Can you name something that Trump is wrong other than, oh, he's not, he's too perfect or something? I don't think so either. Me too, if you could. Yeah, I think that a lot of the criticism of Kamala was not recognizing trying to put together an entire campaign in a couple of weeks is not that easy. Like, people usually have time to like adjust, to prepare. I think all things considered, she did as well as could be expected. And it's not her fault that there was no primary. Like, at that point, it's not like you could have a primary. She didn't even have time to do what she did. If you like the primary, how would you even do a primary? How would you bandy together a primary in 60 days and then have a general? Like, it's just impossible. Did you see that? Well, she was elected for, to be clear, Kamala Harris was the elected vice president. And when you vote in the primaries, you vote for delegates. The delegates agreed to vote for somebody. Just like a lot of times they'll have people, like once you will have delegates transfer their votes to whoever wins. The delegates at Joe Biden's request changed their vote. It's like electoral votes, they what were they supposed to do? Vote for Joe Biden even though he wasn't running? Like, I mean, I feel like this is a a lazy argument that people make. Like they don't say what should have happened. Because whenever you look at an alternative, there's no realistic alternative. That's why I said criticism. My criticism goes to Joe Biden. He should have recognized long before that he was not ready to do another 4 years. I did not see the painting of Bush Air in the Epstein's house with the paper airplane with 2 Chinga towers. I did not see that. Whoa. Well, that's an opinion. I would say that Donald Trump isn't ready to be president, but here we are. Not a big glass is a big laugh. Your president is the biggest Dane person on the planet. We cannot say 2 words together in the world. I don't understand. Looks like text to speech butchered your comment. I'm a Democrat and Joe Biden sucked. The real question is, can any MAGA cultist say one thing critical of Trump? Still waiting for Gary to criticize Trump. That's the start. Let's quit yelling in the sidelines, just like at sports. If you can do that, then we can continue to have a dialogue. I've seen a lot more Democrats criticize Biden in this chat, and I have yet to see Trump supporters criticize Trump. It's the spell. I wish Biden would not have run again, so AOC could, or any other candidate could have run. Who would you like to see run in 2028? Like who? Or well, I shouldn't say who would you like to see run. Who would you like to see as the nominee in 2028? I can first Avenger. I don't like a lot of the things that Trump does. Can you name one? Trump was okay. Can you name something wrong with Trump? Can you name something wrong with Trump? Can you name something wrong with Trump? Go on. Do it. Do it. Do it. Say something wrong with Trump. I dare you. Biden did a good job. The numbers support that. However, I completely agree. He should have only run for 1 term. Okay. Name something wrong with Trump. You keep pushing this. Name something wrong with Trump. And Biden was not brain dead. He had brain activity. He wasn't brain dead. Stop using hyperbole to avoid saying something wrong with Trump. But you towed the line for MAGA, Gary. I fail to see how you're an independent thinker. Yeah, just saying name something wrong with Biden or you're not an independent thinker doesn't make you an independent thinker. Wish he could just offer to step down if he can't keep all his grifts and money. As long as he goes, I'm okay with the trade-off. Okay, let's not go nuts. Biden being a better president is a pretty low bar. Basically, a dementia patient with the. I think that there's a lot of the dementia stuff that's overblown, and I think he should have made more public appearances and things like that. But he was never diagnosed with dementia. There's no indication he had dementia. That's just a lot of fuck. This is what the right wing does: is they take things and they just yell about it until, even if you don't think it's true, you feel like there's some truth to it. They did that with Bill and Hillary Clinton, and like all the like the Clinton Foundation, where they just kept yelling false things so long that you felt like you just had a negative feeling associated with the Clinton Foundation, even though nothing has ever been proven about the Clinton Foundation being wrong. All the allegations about it were thoroughly debunked. The ratings for its charitable use and stuff were always at the top. But still, you say Clinton Foundation and people feel like there's this negative feeling associated with it because they made it negative. I feel like that's what happened with Joe Biden. A lot of stuff about, so much smoke got blown that people just assumed there must have been some fire. But there's no medical reason whatsoever to think that Joe Biden had dementia. But here we are, always talking about Joe Biden's dementia. Donald Trump will like pardon somebody and not know who he is the next day. So who's the real auto pen? Democrats haven't answered a question in 20 years. They don't have policies. They have. Yeah, this is just, there's nothing, this is just lunacy. There's none of that is true, Ernest. What do you mean they haven't answered a question in 20 years? They don't have policies. ACA wasn't a policy. They only have regrets and revert to Trump because Trump is their enemy. Trump has only existed the last 10 years in politics. And none of my politics have anything to do with Trump. My policies do not change based on Donald Trump. The Nancy Guthrie story is to distract. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know if it is a distraction from other things. I never get into these nationalized missing person stories or whatever. I think they're always a distraction, whether it was that one little girl or Nancy Guthrie. You know, I didn't even like get all that into the O.J. Simpson thing. You know, if you subscribe to Donnie's mailing list, he sends you a letter that says, I can't talk about this, but I need you. Anything help. I thought you were a real patriot. That man's still grifting, still trying to get campaign money, even though he can't run for anything. And you are starting to do so well. It seems to me like you've fallen into manufactured culture wars, outrage that leads to like. All right, so what? How far behind am I? 424. Only about 10 minutes. Did Gary ever say anything wrong with Trump? He doesn't hate Trump. He doesn't hate ICE. He hates God. He's an atheist. Well, that's quite a mouthful. I spent 15 years as a minister, so I don't think that I'm the Antichrist, and I don't think I hate God. Your Overton window is still within the wings of this corporate bird. If Trump's second term was a reaction to Biden's being too left-wing, I cringe to think of who the fascists will put forth next. I don't think he was I think he was a reaction to what Fox News presented Biden as. Like, you know, they act like green energy is some scandal, that climate change is a hoax. And now you've got the climate change denier in chief just pretending that the science isn't there and rewriting science based on his bloviating opinion. But Democrats believe in abortion. I can never back that. Nobody's asking you to. And I don't know what you mean by believe in abortion. Democrats believe that women have bodily autonomy. Abortion is not a thing you can believe in or not believe in. It's something you can agree with as a decision or not agree with. But abortions exist, and the reasons they exist are a matter of opinion. And I personally don't think that my opinion on women's health issues should be what dictates their health decisions. The heir apparent seems to be the vice. I don't think that the couch fornicator, I don't think he has any chance at all of becoming president. He's got the charisma of a fornicated couch. Define abortion for me. I don't know what you're saying is not true. You're right, and the delegates did not vote for Kamala. I don't know what you're flat out saying is not true. the delegates actually did vote for Kamala Harris. That's how she won. They still had a primary, or not primary. They still had a convention, and in the convention, the delegates voted for Harris. Biden was not the president. Obama was doing it. Oh, okay. We're another one of those people. I have no idea who I would like to see. A lot if the political figures I watch are running for Illinois, like Kat. I have to think about that. I don't think Kat is old enough to run for president, but I like Kat. I think she should. She's running for House, right? I'm claiming you've fallen for a psyop, specifically the far right culture war. You have done nothing to. Just on this whole thing, and if you've watched the show before, if you've been around before, I think what we need to do is start talking about actual issues and not talk about politicians. And then we vote for the politicians who will act accordingly on the issues that we think are important. Like immigration is a real issue. I don't think that anybody in America thinks that right now immigration is not an issue. However you want to look at it, like, whether it's anything from deportations to, a pathway to citizenship. There's legitimate things that need to be discussed. There's what involves requesting asylum. And is it too easy to get asylum? Is it too hard to get asylum? Is it in some ways both? Do we need a way for low-wage workers to come over here and do low-wage jobs that other Americans don't want, and give them a way to migrate here and live here and die here and become citizens here? Or is it just only if you have $100,000 to buy a visa with? Like, are these things benefit America? Low-wage immigrants actually benefit America. And we can talk, when we talk about illegal versus illegal versus, that's what we end up talking about. Legal immigration versus illegal immigration. Open borders versus closed borders. Not how much immigration should we have? How should immigration be regulated? What kind of immigration should we have? Like, talk about the issues instead of these binary culture war choices, like you're saying. I think that's what we need to have, conversations about issues instead of conversations about sides and instead of conversations about politicians. I think that immigration is a huge issue, and we never talk about the actual issue. We just talk about stupid things like open borders and closed borders and mass deportations. And ICE running around shooting citizens. ICE running around shooting citizens is a result of the culture war. ICE running around shooting citizens is not a result of mass of immigrants. The illegal immigrants are not the reason ICE is out on the streets right now. The politicization of immigrants is. Okay, so I'm totally lost my spot in the comments. I clicked somewhere. There we go. Okay. If the net or yeah, I think I'm pretty sure that she's not alive anymore. He doesn't hate Trump. He doesn't hate ICE. Oh, we're back to that one. Exactly what I said. Abortion wasn't something that the Christian right cared about up until the 90s and into the 2000s. Yeah, abortion was actually more like in the 80s. It started to become a Republican issue. If you look at polling from the 70s, then the percentage of people that were pro-choice versus pro-life was about the same for either party. But it was, let's see, Jerry Falwell and the moral majority that started making it this Republican issue. And then Jerry Falwell became Pat Robertson, and Pat Robertson became Donald Trump. Thank you. Is Democrat Party didn't even want Biden to be. I don't know what that means. I still haven't heard you say anything wrong with Donald Trump. MAGA moving the goalposts always when you realize you can't get your way with saying Biden bad, just jumping at another talking point. Remember, it's never the other side's fault. Anything ever, says the person who can't say anything wrong with this side. They're all corrupt, the whole corrupt system, but there's no boys in my granddaughter's bathroom. And I'm paying $2 for gas and No, you're not. You're not paying $2 for gas. There's never been girls in your boys. There's never been boys in your granddaughter's bathroom. I have no idea. And like, seriously, who cares if there is a transgender person peeing next to your granddaughter? Your granddaughter doesn't. I'm claiming you've fallen for blah, 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 blah. Okay. The corporate Dems capitulate and slide ever toward the right. Yes. I think there is that. I think there's truth to that. I think that there's this kind of myth that the Democrats keep moving further and further to the left. And the only issues that I think the Democrats have actually moved to the left on are the LGBTQ issues. There has been a shift there. It used to be they were all like against gay marriage and everything. But for the most part, most of the movement from the left has been to the right. We don't have a left party. We have a center-right party and a fascist party. And I would love to see more movement to the left from the Democrats. I have a lot of criticism about the Democrats, but they're not fascists. Wow, that Ernest guy is off the... I know, I was kind of thinking there's an irony that his name is Ernest. Trump is not the greatest. But what names something wrong with Trump? You haven't named anything wrong with Trump. Like, Trump is not the greatest, is not a criticism. Oh, Trump talks too much? That's not a criticism. That's a cop-out. He's very rude. I think Trump has been disrespectful to many other country leaders. Now that we have learned about the devil we don't know. I can agree with you on some point, Gary. I believe 100% that the reason why Trump won was because of the Democratic Party's mismanagement of their last term in office. I don't think it was 100% because of that. I think it was a lot of it had to do with the fact that inflation went up. I think the major reason, the biggest reason of all reasons that Trump won his second term is inflation in 2023 and 2022, which had nothing to do with Joe Biden, or very little to do with Joe Biden. But the media every single day making it about Joe Biden, that's the reason that Donald Trump won. Donald Trump never had to say a single thing about what he was going to do about inflation. Republicans never had to say anything at all about what they were going to do about inflation. But if you look at what the voters said when they went to the polls, the number one reason that they voted for Donald Trump is they said that Donald Trump was going to do better on the economy without even having any idea of what he was going to do for the economy. The reason that Donald Trump won the second term is because nobody knew the whole lazy way the media approached the economy. They did not do their job. They did not try to inform people about the economy. They horse raced the whole thing, and they just made the horse race about Joe Biden. Yeah, Gallup just decided they weren't even going to try and talk about it anymore. I voted for Trump because I saw what was going on, and I could not vote for Biden and Harris again. Biden and Harris. Okay, what is wrong with Donald Trump? Still haven't seen you say that. Trump is in the rest of the Epstein files. Some they don't want to release. I think that at this point, you have to wonder why they're trying so hard to not release the Epstein files. Trump was, yeah. I mean, there's no question. But why not? Monday, Congress gets Epstein files access. Tuesday, members frantically search for names. Wednesday, Bondi reveals she tracked everything. Thursday, Democrats block DHS funding. Friday, government shutdown. Yeah, I don't know if those things are connected as much, but I mean, a lot of that was. I'd seen, you know, there's a. I don't know that the DHS thing and the Epstein thing are connected. While the far right breaks the rules as flagrantly as possible while screaming about infractions from the anti-group, from the out-group, are simply manufacturing infractions and spreading propaganda to sow distrust. Okay, guys, I need to take a short break here. I've got a situation I have to deal with. I'm back. Thank you for your patience. I was at popping point. So then they do. So what? I think I missed the. Joe Biden was never fit to. Yeah, I don't think that's true. I actually think that, especially the first 2 years of Joe Biden's presidency, was actually two of the best years, at least in my lifetime. I think he did an outstanding job his first 2 years. People forget what he inherited. It's like, I think that there's a lot of MAGAs that seem to believe that Donald Trump or that Joe Biden was president in 2020. Yeah. Okay. Congress gets. Okay. I was wondering why we have such cold temperatures. because climate change is not today's weather. It's interesting about climate change. If you want to check on my channel, I did a whole lot. I went, like, it was climate change is one of those things where I really wanted to actually learn what I was talking about, or at least, even if I wasn't talking, just to understand it. And the whole idea of climate change is not something I really understood exactly, but it's not just that we're getting warmer. Like, I think a lot of people think of climate change as being interchangeable with global warming. And in some ways, the term climate change was introduced as a pejorative. The climate is actually getting warmer, but the climate is also changing. Both things are true. And what climate change is that the Earth overall is warming, but it's not all warming at the same pace. It's warming faster at the North Pole than it is at the equator. So the temperature difference between the equator and the North Pole there's something called the North Atlantic Current, for instance. Okay. And the North Atlantic Current is this current that goes from, like, Mexico and the Gulf of Mexico all the way up to Europe. And the reason that Europe is actually a lot warmer by latitude than, say, North America is because of this current. This current brings warm water to Europe, and that warm water warms the entire continent. Okay. Now, what happens is when you have the north heating up faster than the south, is the temperature difference starts shrinking. And the way that the law of thermodynamics works is that hot moves towards cold, right? Like, the great things go to the lesser energy. So this water, this current that goes from the equator to the North Pole, as that temperature goes smaller, the speed of that current goes slower. And that means that the warming in Europe will actually start to go down. That also means that all kinds of weather patterns in the ocean and in the air, like wind and all kinds of stuff like that, all of that gets messed up by the difference in weather and temperature differences between the north and the south. Like, I didn't know any of this. But, like, if you ever hold your finger up against a window, like on a really, really cold day, and you feel that, like, what feels like a draft, that's actually the heat from your finger going towards the window. That's not air from the window coming to your finger. That's an example of what is happening. And so as that temperature, as that drift slows and it changes weather patterns, it's not just that things are getting warmer. It's that, like in in India, the differences in weather patterns are changing monsoon seasons. So places where you're going to have some places where you have droughts that you didn't used to have droughts, and you'll have places that have flooding that didn't used to have flooding, because the difference between the ocean temperature and the atmospheric temperature are getting so extreme, you have intensified hurricanes, because that's what's going on with hurricanes. Is the temperature difference and the air circulating up to the top. All of these things are happening as a result of the north, not just the globe heating, not just global warming, but weather changing. Climate is changing. It's not just today's weather that changed. Things like climate are changing. Currents are changing. Wind patterns are changing. That's why it's climate change. That's why we need to worry about it. And Donald Trump just going presto magnifico and doing some kind of Harry Potter spell doesn't make that any different. It doesn't make it go away. Anyway, sorry, I don't know even remember why I got on that rant. Bye, Dusty. Thank you. Like him suing the IRS. Yes, him. Donald Trump is suing the IRS for something the IRS did while he was in charge of the IRS. So that's fun for you. Dems aren't. What do you mean they aren't better, though they pretend to be? What do you mean they're not better? How are they not better? What does that mean? Better in what? Just saying things doesn't make them things that are true. Like, what do you mean they aren't better? They're just, if they aren't better, if they're exactly the same, then why are there two? Why are the Republicans so opposed to them? We're going to each out $29 for that. I don't know what that. $29. I think I missed something. Anyway, you talk like you're anti-establishment while praising the very establishment you act like you're outside of. How does that make sense? Oh, Nikki Haley. I hadn't thought of her in a long time, and I wish I still hadn't. I don't know. ICE has been doing the same job since ICE has not been doing the same job since before Obama. Like, ICE is fundamentally doing different things now than they were under Obama. Like, ICE was not going through towns. Obama never sent 3,000 ICE agents into cities to do what ICE is doing right now. ICE was not doing the same thing under Obama. ICE was not doing the same thing under Trump. ICE was not doing the same thing under Biden. That's just an objectively wrong statement. You cannot, like, the operation, the Metro thing, that was the largest ICE operation in the history of ICE. So just by the fact that it is the largest proves it is not the same thing that was happening under ICE, under Obama. It wouldn't be the largest if it were the typical. They are asking people on the street. They are asking people on the street here in Europe. Who are the stupidest people in the world? 80% did say the MAGA. We don't understand your mentality. We think USA is becoming a banana republic. I say we're becoming a banana Republican. God bless you, Benzo. Have a good life. Obama did not give them awards for executing people on the street. You seem like a very dishonest person. Anyway, I can't stay for long. You guys have a blessed day. Thank you, Monroe, for dropping by. USA is becoming a banana Republican now under Trump. Greetings from Norway. Thank you. Sorry to hear about your former prime minister, or maybe I'm not. Did you hear about that? The guy that got arrested? Trump would go into teen beauty contest changing rooms. Yes, he would. Who cares if a man is peeing next to your daughter? Well, if they're sitting down, if a transgender woman is sitting in the stall next to my daughter, how is my daughter even going to know, much less care? He didn't say man, and I didn't say man. The fact that some people can't acknowledge that transgender people even exist is part of the problem. Trump is hiding rest of the Epstein files, hiding the rest of the Epstein files, I think you mean. Speech to text. I'm learning that it's speech to text. Sometimes I've got to translate speech to text in my head and get it back to speech. I think it must be really bad stuff in there. I think there must be, like, the stuff that has been revealed is bad. So and people act like, well, well, there's nothing in there that can, like, this, they're gonna release the stuff that proves him guilty is going to be in the stuff they've already revealed. Like, that's such a dumb argument to me. And the stuff that's in there is bad enough. What is in the stuff they're not revealing? I think naturally the stronger the fighting, the more polar each party becomes. I believe in moderate. I am a registered independent. What I would like, and that's why I think Nut, that can I call you Nut? Is it Nut? Nut a Kappa. I'll just call you Nut unless you don't want me to. But Nut, I think that's why we need to talk about issues. I think when we talk about actual issues rather than sides, it leads us to having like more intelligent, more nuanced conversations where we can talk about things like what to do about immigration instead of whether or not the borders are open or closed. Government under Biden, what was the nightmare? Like, how was it a nightmare? The U.S. had high inflation, but was still lower than other countries. And the inflation wasn't because of the government either. The inflation was because of the COVID. I never understood why Donald Trump gets a pass for all the bad things that happened because of COVID, but Joe Biden, the things that happened because of COVID don't, like, that's his fault. It's still his fault. Stuff that happened before Joe Biden became president were Joe Biden's fault. Stuff that happened while Donald Trump was president weren't Donald Trump's fault. Trump won because he said what people wanted to hear. Trump lies. Well, Joe Biden wasn't the entire issue. I agree with you there, but suddenly changing yeah, and maybe you weren't here when we talked about that. What choice did they have? Joe Biden stepped down. They didn't have time to run a primary. And by the time that happened, inflation was was already well on its way down. And inflation wasn't because of the Dems. Inflation was because of a number of other reasons. But blaming inflation on the Dems is just not even a realistic argument. Not even the Heritage Foundation blamed all of inflation on the Dems. They said it was only 40% the Dems' fault. Most places would say that it was a smaller percentage. But inflation is not any one person. There's no singular cause of inflation. The whole thing is more nuanced than that. Prices don't hinge on Democrats versus Republicans. And that all still just skips the point that there was a worldwide inflation caused by the supply chain collapse of COVID. And then there was also the war that started with Ukraine, which affected international oil supplies. There were other issues that happened that caused inflation that had nothing to do with Joe Biden. Okay, they could have done more and run more on fixing the economy. They didn't do that. I don't know what else they could have done to fix the economy, but I do agree that they should have fought back more on the economy instead of just taking punches. I'm not from the U.S., but I can assure you, Democratic or Republican, either way, the ruling party is only going to increase defense funds and appease oligarchs in the U.S. That is I can see why people from other countries would feel that way. And I think there was, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know where you're from, Chet. But I think that there were people in other countries that were willing to look past Trump won and say, you goofed, you're still America. And then Biden came along and they're like, okay, you're back. And now Trump too, they're just like, screw it. Let's start making trade deals with other people and squeeze the U.S. out. Trump is not saving an economy. We are borrowing $43 billion a week since beginning of the fiscal year. That's a lot of money. 2.7 with Trump. And then that is even the 2.7%. There's a lot murkiness there. That first of all, we don't have the October rates, so it's actually probably higher than that. I think it's actually 2.4% was January, but it's still murky because we still don't know. Like October obfuscates things, not having the data, and they just kind of skipped over that. That's part of the problem. We also have prices going down on some things and prices going up on others. We had talked earlier, if you weren't here, we talked about there's things that you need to buy and there are things you want to buy. Like the things that are there's discretionary spending and there's non-discretionary spending. That's the words I'm looking for. Generally speaking, on discretionary spending, inflation is down. Non-discretionary spending, inflation is up. So food is up, housing is up, electricity is up. Like the things that you actually need to buy, the cost of those things is up. Things like vacation spending are down. Sunby, tell the dumbass narrator that I did say I haven't seen you see. I try to read every comment. I may have missed it. But I have not seen you say anything negative about Trump other than he talks too much. Sunk cost fallacy. Yeah. You can't even talk. Well, because I keep trying to respond to you, dude. Y'all have a good day. At the end of the day, we are all just trying to do what's best for this country in our own way. How far behind am I in the chat? Usually when I start getting complaints about, it's funny because like when I get complaints about how far behind I'm in the chat, I'm like even further behind in the chat by the time I try to go through the comments one by one. All right. So, and then I skip ahead. And then when I skip ahead, I miss over things. So Kelly is a true blue Democrat and you can't take that away from him. So go ahead, Gary, tell me something wrong with Trump, specifically wrong with Trump. And I'm skipped ahead. If I missed something before, you can go ahead. I'm trying to catch up now. It's warming enough that now ships are using the Arctic in the summer. Yes. There are whole new waterways opening up. 2.9%. Well, sort of. I mean, the month he left office, I think it was more like 2.7%. The month before that, it's like you can like month to month stuff. You can put too much or too little into. And again, inflation under Biden and inflation because of Biden are two different conversations. Yeah, except nothing's like this is just nonsense. Bye, Gary. Bye. Missed Gary leaving. Oh, see, so I skipped down to find out what I'll come. Well, I mean, it's a political channel. Like all I talk about is politics. Anyway. So let's go back to, let's see if I can get through the end of this slideshow here. Statistical recovery versus lived reality. I think we already went through that. Okay, well, maybe I didn't. And just in case people. All right, so let's finish this off. Statistical recovery versus lived reality. What the headlines say, GOP is growing steadily. Our GDP is growing steadily, but that's driven by AI CapEx from 5 tech companies. 100. That's what I was trying to. The AI CapEx. That you take those 5 companies out of the stock market, and the rest of the Dow is down. 130,000 jobs added, beating expectations. 95% of those were healthcare and social assistance jobs, which all are related to baby boomers retiring more than they are the economy doing well. Unemployment at 4.3%, labor force participation declining. 638,000 more unemployed since January 2025. Stock market at record highs. Top 10% own 88% of the stock. So most people aren't really benefiting from the stock market being at record highs anyway. What people are experiencing, they can't afford groceries. Food prices are up 23% since 2021. Tariffs are adding more. Only 15,000 jobs a month. We're only adding 15,000 jobs a month in 2025 outside of healthcare. We're drowning in debt. Credit card debt is $1.2 trillion at 23% APR. Savings are getting decimated. Losing healthcare and benefits, ACA subsidy cuts, which we are just, I don't think we've resolved that one yet, have we? I think that's actually, now that I think about it, whatever happened to the ACA benefits? Did they ever figure that one out? I don't seem to remember they have. Medicaid work requirements and SNAP reductions. The economy isn't good or bad. It's both at the same time. That's the K. That's the K in the K-shaped economy. So that's the rest of the slideshow. Political parties egg us on to fight. Most Americans are down the middle. I think sometimes the middle is overrated, or like left, right, middle. Like even saying middle defines left and right. Like sometimes I feel like the middle ground is there's a fallacy called the fallacy of the false middle, where there's an assumption that the middle is always better. But like, let's take slavery, for example. What is, like some people would say slavery is bad, and then some people would say slavery is good, and then the middle would be indentured servitude, right? Like indentured servitude is still bad. Any form of slavery is bad. You don't have a middle ground on slavery is bad sometimes, but in this case, so the middle is not always necessarily better. And I'm using that as an illustration because I think that's something that almost nobody would do. Maybe Stephen Miller would disagree with me, but there's other things where I don't think that the middle is necessarily better. Like healthcare. I think that healthcare should be universal. I don't think that, there's a middle ground on that is better. I think the middle ground, I think that the consensus is most people agree that you should be able to get health care and that it shouldn't be rationed according to how much money you make. I like the new MAGA talking point. The Epstein files report Trump is a child rapist and abuser. But MAGA is outraged with people because they did not tweet enough earlier to their satisfaction about releasing these same files that report Trump to be a rapist. Hey there, fake MAGA patriot. Nice to see somebody weighing in from Twitter. What does down the middle? Yeah, exactly. What does down the middle mean exactly? I find that neither party truly represents most Americans because there are so many issues. And again, I just, I keep saying this. Why can't we talk about what the issues are? Let's talk about healthcare as an issue rather than as a left versus right thing. Let's talk about immigration as an issue rather than a left versus right thing. Let's talk about housing as an issue rather than a left versus right thing. There's a very real problem that housing is becoming unaffordable for people to enter into the housing market, especially young people. I think I don't remember the numbers, but people under 40 getting their own, like the percentage of people who get their first home before they turn 40 is like way down from like 20, 30 years ago. So why is that? And what can we do to make that better? Part of the reason is after the housing bubble crashed, we started building fewer houses. Like it became like nobody wanted to get into it because of the crash. There just aren't new houses being built on the scale that we need them. And part of the reason for that is also there are communities that don't want new houses built in those communities. They're like, oh, we need new houses, but not here. You know, I think that it's called not in my neighborhood. And so that's another issue. Like, why don't we have, like, how can we break up local zonings or encourage local zonings to allow new homes to be built so that people can buy new homes? We need to talk about issues. And I think what helps is when you start talking about issues instead of the politics around the issues, but you talk about the actual issues, maybe you can start getting people to think about things rather than waiting for their for their congressman to give a speech on the House floor and repeat their talking points. New economy depends on which economy you're living in. The new economy, the economic numbers are, you know, you can go back and watch the whole thing, but that's what the whole episode has been on, is that they're actually confusing. They're actually they reinforce, they show that we have a K-shaped economy. The new economic numbers are good for the people that are rich. They are not good for the people who are not rich. You have 60% of the money that is being spent in America right now is being spent by the top 20% of wage earners. And that's like compared to 43% from 20 years ago. So why do we have such a shift from spending being, you know, why do we no longer have a middle class that can afford to spend money? But they, and you know, then there's some of the spending by the bottom 80%, most of that spending, a lot of that spending, maybe, I don't know, most of it, but a lot of that spending is credit card spending. Like they're going more into debt and they're not being able to pay it off, and credit card defaults are going up. So a lot of these numbers that look good on the surface, when you peel back the layer, you see a lot of lipstick on a very ugly pig. The Republicans have weaponized the religion, completely brainwashed people. They can't even think logically. The whole Christian right thing is neither Christian nor right. Rich gets more rich, poor will get stuck with a religious group like God would pay insurance. I think we agree on more than we don't. Maybe, I mean, I think if we get past politics, then I think we would be able to agree on. I just like Americans would be able to agree on more. Like, I don't think that, like, for instance, I have a lot of sympathy for the mid-American farmers. And I know that they voted for Trump, and I know that they're getting killed by Trump. But I'm not, you know, like, there's no Schadenfreude here. I feel for, I think that American farmers are good for America. I think that small farmers are good for America. And I think we need to be able to help small farmers. And one of the ways that we can help small farmers is by making immigration by poor people legal again. Part of the problem is, you know, we don't have legal ways for small private farmers to legally hire legal immigrants. And the legal immigrants are the only one, the immigrants are the only ones that want to do the jobs they need to pay. It will take me 18 months to get my U.S. citizenship from Manchester. I have a 9-year-old daughter in Columbus, Ohio. Are you living in Ohio right now, or are you living in Manchester? Don't they have a soccer team or something? That was a joke. And that's a quality. And that's just to qualify. I still have to get a legal representation and pass all the vetting. Yeah. At least you can get in line. I'll give you that. Sadly, a lot of people, there is no line to get in. New houses are all huge too, at least in my area. Massive homes on small lots so developers can make in millions. Nothing for new young families. Yeah. They're called starter homes. And there's like fewer the homes. Starter homes are like in a price range or something like that. They're the idea that, you know, this is your first home for a small family, you know, the 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom house that somebody can buy and move into with, you know, median income. There's, is it called Alice? Is it Alice threshold? That's what I'm thinking of. So there's, like I was talking before, I don't know if you were here, but there's our measure of poverty is completely messed up, and it's all based on how much money. Our current measure of poverty is all based entirely 100% on food. How much food you can live off if you're a poor person. And then they triple that, triple what you can live off as a poor person. And then that's the poverty level, which doesn't make any sense anymore. It made sense when it was done to a certain degree, and it was only made to be a temporary measure. But anyway, there's other better ways to measure this. And one of these ways is called ALICE, which is actually an acronym. But far too many families, the cost of for who we are. Sorry. Once you see a problem like financial scarcity, you can't unsee it. It is everywhere you look. Can't. I wasn't really planning on getting into this, so I didn't. A problem, maybe that one. Sorry. Anyway, what Alice does is it, rather than looks at just food, sorry, I'll just drop this website here, and if you want to look at it, you can. But I find this is really interesting. It is a way of measuring poverty that's more realistic than the poverty level. And according to the Alice metric, 42% of American households are falling behind financially every month. The Alice method, it looks more into what does it cost for your housing, what does it cost for your food, clothing, transportation, student loans, all of that kind of stuff, like basic things that you need to live. What does that cost? Healthcare. It's an acronym for Assisted Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed. Asset limited, income strained, and employed. This is people that have jobs but don't have a lot of assets and have limited income. And how, you know, it kind of measures how much money do you need to survive. And for a family of 4, you actually need like $120,000 a year or something. To just like basically pay for your basic needs. The idea of the poverty level, I mean, that's not saying you can't live off of that, but to, you know, live at an average house and spend average food, it's so far beyond what we think of. And so like 47% of households don't even meet the Alice threshold. The average American right now is is almost living in functional poverty. But we don't talk about that. So back to you. You go mock the MAGAs. Fight the good fight. All right. I think I'm done rambling for the day, for the week. I'm going to make some sourdough crackers tomorrow. So that should be good. Sourdough whole grain crackers out of fresh milled flour. Never tried that before. So anyway, I hope you guys all have a wonderful weekend. And hopefully ice won't kill anybody. We'll talk to you later. Bye.